Chapter 59. Yenzhou's military district turned a deaf ear to the doubts and arguments online. They paid no attention to the little squabbles of the netizens. Their objective was to publicize the might and grandeur of their military district and get more people from Yangzhou to enlist and serve conscientiously instead of coming up with all sorts of excuses and exploiting loopholes in the law to escape military service. It had to be said that Yenzhou's promotional video had indeed gone viral online. It had made its presence known, and Du Encheng's husband, Hong Lu, had even received a commendation during a meeting. There was no need to doubt the contribution of the soundtrack. Clothes made the man, and videos needed sound to decorate. Yangzhou military's promotional video could not compare to Rongzhou's in terms of equipment and scale. However, the promotional videos of other continents did not become popular, while Yenzhou's were. This was the reason why different soundtracks gave different audiences different impressions. Why were so many big-budget movies, games, and advertisers willing to spend huge sums of money to customize a soundtrack? Don't think that they were at a disadvantage. The returns they received were much more than people could imagine. Yenzhou's military district was in the limelight, and Silver Wing did not suffer any losses. Continents other than Yangzhou had their own regions that strictly filtered commercial music, films, and other things. Some even blocked them from other continents to prevent them from threatening the entertainment circles of their own continents and affecting the interests of their own continents. But that was only for commercial items. Non-profit videos like the promotional video of a continent's military district could not be blocked, and nobody dared to. Silver Wing also took the opportunity to launch a global publicity campaign to set the pace. Otherwise, how could people from other continents have found out so quickly that the 4-minute soundtrack had come from the debut series of Polar Light, a virtual idol? The soundtrack drove even more popularity, and outside of Yangzhou, even more people searched for news about Polar Light and the 100-year period of destruction series. While promoting himself, he also helped his wife advertise. Major General Hong Lu was very happy. This was a win-win situation. Even the movie God of War, which was screening in Leizhou, had garnered even more attention. As a qualified hype team, Zaro's agent and wireless media seized this opportunity to once again promote their own movie. Then, they took away the Best Original Score award for King of Snipers and almost caused the movie's ratings to drop below 8. Before the movie had been released, many people had speculated that King of Snipers would win a few awards. Among the biggest film awards in Leizhou, King of Snipers would probably win a few. However, when King of Snipers and God of War were released at the same time, many people knew that King of Snipers would lose the Best Film Score award. God of War, a bad film, had no chance of winning an award. The Chinese Film and Television Association wouldn't give them the award either, as they felt it was too embarrassing. But if they gave the award to King of Snipers, it would cause a huge controversy. So, many people knew that the Chinese Film and Television Association would give the award to another film, avoiding these two films that were at the peak of the storm. The investors behind King of Snipers were so angry that they vomited blood. They had also put in a lot of effort into the soundtrack. They had invested a lot of money to hire a famous copyrighted music team. They had planned to win an award for the soundtrack, but it was a pity that they had lost to Zaro, that piece of shit. The investors had hired many professionals to criticize Zaro's team for creating hype and deliberately discrediting Zaro's team. Zaro had publicly retorted during interviews. Yes, we are stinky dog shit, but even if we are a pile of dog shit, we still have our merits. Don't deny it all. Instead of spending so much time criticizing the wireless company's despicable behavior, it would be better to find out where we have gone wrong. Is it hard to admit defeat? Do you think you are the best in the world just because you are used to being arrogant? As for those who criticized God of War and said that netizens who watched God of War were all mentally retarded, Zaro scolded them without fail. Look at how capable you all are. How can you feel superior just by watching a movie? If you are so capable, why don't you join the military and explore other planets? Zaro wasn't afraid of being criticized by these people. No matter how harshly they criticized him, they couldn't deny that he had used a soundtrack that could steal an award from the other party. Although he couldn't compete with the other party in terms of box office, ratings, or awards, He was satisfied and happy that his soundtrack had stolen an award from the other party. Celebration. A raise. Zaro's agent was also very excited, not just because he had stolen an award from the other party, but also because their movie had not only broken even, it had earned more than 60 million. Pure profit. This sort of income was nothing to other film industry peers, but Zaro's agent was very excited. Given Zaro's personality, which was to throw money at lousy movies to boost the popularity of others, not to mention profits, breaking even was their goal every time. This time, not only had they broken even, but after deducting all expenses, including the expenses for publicity and operations, they had earned more than 60 million. This was really a huge improvement. Sometimes, Zaro's agent wondered if it would have been better if he had one mission, but it was only a fleeting thought before he threw it to the back of his mind. Over at Yangzhou, Fang Zhao was not paying attention to the global entertainment industry. He was working hard with his team. Even if Du and Qianji had not mentioned it, he had intended to get the project team to produce the fourth movement before Memorial Day. That way, they could have a relaxing Memorial Day holiday. Since the third movement had been given to the Yangzhou military as the theme song for the promotional video, other than online downloads, there was no way it could be used anywhere else. Television stations, video studios, advertising companies, and the like were not allowed to use the third movement. Using it would be considered copyright infringement, and they would see it in court. However, Silver Wing had not charged a single cent for the third movement being used as the theme song for the promotional film. Du and Qianji knew that even if the Yangzhou military paid, it would not be as generous as Zaro. Therefore, she was more than willing to use the third movement in exchange for other benefits. Some benefits would benefit Silver Wing as a whole, while others would benefit Fang Zhao personally. While Fang Zhao was instructing Pang Pusong on vocal practice, Du and Qianji called him to her office on the top floor. I have 2 things to discuss with you. Du and Qianji had chosen to speak to Fang Zhao personally instead of getting her assistant to inform him. First, the Yangzhou military's promotional film has garnered a lot of attention on the third movement. As she spoke, Du and Qianji turned on her screen and showed Fang Zhao a screenshot of the comments she had saved. Because of its popularity, more and more people realized that they could not understand the lyrics of the chorus in the third movement. What kind of language is this? Does anyone know? Our preliminary guess is that it is some ancient language, perhaps from the period of destruction. We'll have to get someone to explain. Is there anyone who studies linguistics online? Please explain. What Du and Qianji showed Fang Zhao were comments from people from various continents regarding the lyrics, as well as media reports. Many music students knew that some people were adept at using a few popular languages to express the ever-changing worldview of a song. However, if one was not careful, the mixture of languages could easily make the song even more difficult to understand. Therefore, without sufficient control, few people would attempt to express themselves in multiple languages. In addition to multiple languages, there was another form of music that completely transcended language control, using an unknown language to express itself. To put it bluntly, it was a self-created musical language. This kind of language might be meaningless in itself, just to complement the tune. Or it might be an ancient language that had been lost for a long time. Regardless of the situation, it might not be able to express anything clearly, but it could convey the same emotions and mood. However, in the absence of a clear answer, the only way to find out was to ask the composer himself. This was what people from all continents were discussing online. Previously, Du and Qianji had not noticed this because she had felt that the lyrics were secondary to the music, which was more attractive. Therefore, she had not seen the lyrics in the third movement. She had only listened to the tune and paid it no mind. She had only noticed it now that more people were talking about it. Right now, the company is using some means to create buzz and hype. We need to keep it a secret. So, for the time being, don't tell anyone what the lyrics in the third movement mean. Don't post any explanations online about the lyrics, Du and Qianji said seriously. Don't worry about that. Fang Zhao smiled. Because I don't know what it means either. Du and Qianji. Are you fucking kidding me? I've only heard of it before and thought it was a good idea to use it here. As for what it means, I don't know either, Fang Zhao said. After the end of the world, many languages and dialects that were not commonly used had disappeared. However, when Fang Zhao was composing, he recalled the words he had heard during the all-out war. Some were said by soldiers as they bid farewell to their friends and family. Some were shouted out on the battlefield. The people they said were no longer around. Fang Zhao did not know what they meant, but when he was composing, the first words that came to his mind along with the melody would be used in the movement. Then, during the recording, he would guide Pang Pusong to sing them out. Duan Qianji looked at Fang Zhao with an indescribable expression. The mind of an amazing artist. She really could not understand it. But perhaps it was this kind of person who could compose such an astonishing movement. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's talk about the second matter. Duan Qianji observed Fang Sheng's expression and said, the third movement, mission, was given to the Yangzhou Military Propaganda Department on behalf of Silver Wing. We didn't charge them a single cent even though Duan Qianji had told Fang Zhao about giving the third movement to the military and had gotten his approval. Duan Qianji still felt the need to clarify the stakes. In her opinion, Fang Zhao was still very young. Perhaps there were some things he couldn't figure out and was keeping to himself. Duan Qianji didn't want someone with such potential to harbor a grudge against the company. We didn't give it away for free. We also received a lot of benefits, some of which cannot be measured with money. Duan Qianji observed Fang Zhao's expression as she spoke. She realized that Fang Zhao remained calm throughout, as if she was just making small talk. Actually, Duan Qianji was overthinking things. Fang Zhao did not feel anything about the matter. He was willing to do it. The most important thing for him to compose these few movements was to let them see the light of day again. The benefits were also important, just not as much as the former. Fang Zhao also believed that as a businesswoman, Duan Qianji knew how to maximize profits, so Fang Zhao was not worried about losing out. Duan Qianji would certainly not skimp on money. And as Duan Qianji said, some privileges could not be bought with money. There are some things I can't tell you, but there is one thing I can tell you. Duan Qianji smiled. Other than some benefits, I used this opportunity to get you 10 spots for military service. As a citizen of the new era, it was unavoidable to fulfill certain obligations. Military service was an unavoidable step. Different types of soldiers, different locations, and different types of service. Some would be assigned to certain teams in the military and sent to distant planets for mining, while others would only be assigned to basic service jobs in urban areas and would not be required to serve in the military. Duan Qianji saw that Fang Zhao was interested, so she continued, I've checked. The other members of the Polar Light Project team have already served in the military during their university years. Only you, Fang Zhao, do not have any military service history in your file. So in the future, when you decide to serve, you can use the spots they give you to exchange for easier work. You don't even have to leave Qian City. During your 1-year military service, you can continue composing without being affected. And I've fought for 10 such quotas for you. Chapter 60. There were many ways to serve in the military. On the surface, those who served in the military would be divided according to their physical conditions. Those who were physically weak would be assigned to places that were more relaxed and did not have to leave the planet. Just as Duan Qianji had said, those who were in poor health might only be assigned to some urban grassroots to do some relatively easy voluntary work. However, these positions were limited. Most conscripts were randomly assigned, and more than 70% of them had to leave the planet. Every year, a large number of conscripts were sent to foreign planets. It was not a vacation. Besides the necessary training, they were also required to do manual labor. Therefore, most people were unwilling to be assigned to such places. Families with the means to do so would use certain means to fight for an easier assignment. This resulted in many shady deals taking place every year, especially in remote urban areas. Small places were even darker, and it could be used as a means of revenge. It had been more than 500 years since the founding of the new era. Many decisions had lost their original meaning. Even the people in the Yangzhou military would sometimes turn a blind eye. After all, it was no longer the period of destruction. Life had to be smooth in order to continue living happily, right? This phenomenon was not limited to Yangzhou. It existed on all continents. Fang Zhao had not completed his military service. With these quotas, he did not need to worry about being assigned to a harsh foreign planet. Du and Qianji naturally hoped that Fang Zhao would stay in Qian City. That would be beneficial to Silver Wing. The core of the Polar Light team was still Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao returned to the 50th floor from the top floor. Taking advantage of the afternoon break, he called the rest of the team over. "Isn't the project meeting tomorrow?" Zhu Wen yawned. He had just gotten ready for his afternoon nap. "It's not a project meeting. I received a few military quotas," Fang Zhao said. Zhu Wen's drowsiness disappeared immediately. He perked up. "It can't be what I'm thinking, right? The kind that gets preferential treatment." Rodney rubbed his hands together, his eyes shining. The others also stared at Fang Zhao, waiting for his reply. Fang Zhao nodded. "That's right." "Aha!" Zhu Wen let out a weird cry. "Why did I enlist in advance? Otherwise, I would still be enjoying special treatment. Why would I need to go mining on a foreign planet?" "Zhu Wen, you were assigned to mining too?" Zheng Huang asked. "Yeah, what else?" Zhu Wen felt his skin tighten at the thought of his military service. "But at the time, my family pulled some strings and spent $1 million to get the person in charge of distribution to send me to a nearby planet with a mature base. You're lucky. The planet I was assigned to didn't have good base conditions, and the weather wasn't good either. It snowed 4 times a year, and every time it snowed, it would last for the next season." Zheng Huang shuddered when he talked about his military service. "Zheng Huang and I served in the military during our 3rd year. We completed our 3rd-year courses during our 1st and 2nd year, so when we came back, we immediately entered our 4th year of studies and didn't delay our graduation," WNU said. "However, Big Zhao, it seems like you haven't served yet. Usually, when students were in university, they would take a year off from school to serve in the military. This was because serving in the military after graduation would delay their work. When Fang Zhao's original self had been in university, he had been busy composing, striving for grades, fighting for awards, and dating, so he hadn't served. I've already served, but, boss." Fu Yingtian paused to organize his words. He had been introduced by Zhu Wen, so he wasn't as casual as Zhu Wen in front of Fang Zhao. Fu Yingtian called Fang Zhao boss like Zhu Wen. Seeing Fang Zhao look over, Fu Yingtian was a little nervous. "I have a younger brother who is in his 3rd year of university this year. He only cares about coding and lacks exercise, so he's skinny. This year, his classmates have decided to take a year off for military service. He's very talented in reg space technology. It's just that when he gets busy, he forgets the time and often stays up late. That's why his physical fitness isn't that good. He even fell ill last year. Boss, you have a quota. I was wondering, could you buy one?" Fang Zhao listened to Fu Yingtian and nodded. Seeing that Fang Zhao had agreed, Fu Yingtian relaxed. He had saved up quite a bit of money after joining the Polar Light project. If he could use that money to buy a highly credible spot, it would be worth it. He had asked around the black market, but there was no way to buy a spot with money, and he might even be cheated. Given his younger brother's appearance, if he was assigned to a remote planet with poor conditions like the one Zheng Huang had mentioned, he might be sent back due to a serious illness midway through his military service. Military service wasn't a death sentence, but Fu Yingtian had experienced it and knew the suffering. If it was an absolutely fair distribution, then he wouldn't have said anything. He would have just followed the rules and followed the arrangements. But since everyone was using underhanded means, why should he be so virtuous? He hadn't done it before because he hadn't had the means, but now that he had the means, he could let those he cared about suffer less. Wasn't hard work all for the sake of creating a better life for himself and his family? How much? Fu Yingtian had wanted to ask how much a quota cost, but he heard Fang Zhao say, "Well, then I'll give you one." "Anyone else?" Fu Yingtian was dumbfounded. Zhu Wen and the others were like statues, staring at Fang Zhao motionlessly. After a few seconds, Zhu Wen took a deep breath. "You mean, you're giving it to us?" He then asked again in disbelief, "Are you really giving it to us for free?" Fang Zhao nodded. "Hold on, Boss, do you know what the black market price is? Zhu Wen rubbed his dark circles and suppressed his excitement. 10 million. Without waiting for Fang Zhao's reply, Zhu Wen said, the black market price is 10 million. Even the lowest is no less than 5 million. Back when I was doing my military service, I wanted to get my own quota, but I didn't have the money. Zhu Wen rambled on, but Fang Zhao only replied with 3 words, got it. Got it, that's it. Zhu Wen stared. Fang Zhao looked at the others and said, how about this, Zhu Wen, Song Miao, Pang Pusong, Zheng Huang, WNU, Fu Yingtian, Stiller, Zhongyu. 8 of you, I'll leave 1 for each of you. You decide who you want, and let me know when you decide. Zhu Wen laughed heartily. Boss, I love you. He was about to give Fang Zhao a hug, but Fang Zhao threw him into the studio. I've given you all the benefits. Do your job well. Yes. I promise I'll complete the mission perfectly. Zhu Wen didn't even want to take a nap. He was very excited. If it wasn't for the fact that it wasn't appropriate to spread the news, he would have cheered in his group chat. Other departments gave out red packets, but their department gave out quotas, a military quota worth tens of millions. However, if their department needed it urgently, they wouldn't sell it to others. Fang Zhao's quota, even if they didn't need it now, would be worth it in the future. Pang Pusong couldn't wait to call his mother. Hello, Mom, I got a quota. Tell uncle and cousin not to worry. The cousin that Pang Pusong was talking about was his uncle's daughter. She was also old enough to serve, but her health was not very good and she often fell sick. His uncle had been worrying about borrowing money and using his connections recently in order to get his daughter to a more relaxed place. Girls were not as unlucky as boys. They would suffer more if they were assigned to a place that was not as good as boys. Pang Pusong's uncle had helped him a lot when he had been playing small roles. Back then, he had been able to practice singing at Silver Wing thanks to his uncle's access card. That was how he had met Fang Zhao. So Pang Pusong was willing to give his quota to his cousin. 2 days later, Fang Zhao received a request from Pang Pusong and Fu Yingtian to inform Duan Qianji of their decision. Duan Qianji was a little surprised that Fang Zhao would give his quota to his subordinates, but she wouldn't interfere. I'll get someone to take care of it for you. So, Fang Zhao, what's your decision? When are you going to serve? Where do you want to serve? Duan Qianji didn't care about the others. What she cared about was Fang Zhao's decision. I'll finish the Polar Light project first, Fang Zhao said. That's true. If Polar Light wins the endorsement, you'll be even busier. You probably won't be able to serve this year. But you're still young. You can serve after a few years. As long as there's a quota, you can serve anytime within the time limit. Duan Qianji was thinking about where to place Fang Zhao in Qian City, preferably somewhere close to the company. She would never have guessed that Fang Zhao had spent the past 2 days looking up information on all planets and paying special attention to the farthest ones. If she had known, Duan Qianji would surely have taken back her quota. After returning to the department and informing Pang Pusong and Fu Yingtian, Fang Zhao filled Curly Hair's automatic feeder with dog food and was about to head to his office for a break when he received a call. Big Zhao, what's up? Zheng Huang asked as he came out of the bathroom and saw Fang Zhao standing at his office door with a strange expression. I'll make a trip to the Qian City police station in the afternoon. What happened? Zheng Huang was nervous. Who would be called to the police station for no reason? Don't worry, it's nothing serious. I'll be right back. Zheng Huang was relieved to hear Fang Zhao say this. As long as nothing happened. Chapter 61. Fang Sheng had been arrested on charges of song theft and intentional injury. Fang Sheng hadn't had a good life since he was kicked out of neon culture. Because he didn't have much of a creative talent, he turned to music school students. Qian City had the best music schools. Other than the Qian Academy of Music, there were 2 other decent music schools. Many of the music students at these schools didn't have the best living conditions. Some took up part-time jobs, but the competition for music-related jobs was just as fierce. So some people chose other ways to earn money for their tuition and living expenses, not registering copyrights, but posting excerpts of their songs on certain platforms. After attracting buyers, they sold the copyrights to the complete songs. That was how some small-time stars got their original works. It was an open secret in the industry. Fang Sheng planned to buy some good works from students who were struggling but had some talent. He couldn't make a name for himself in Qian anymore, so he went somewhere further away and used the works he bought to make a profit. He specifically targeted students who seemed to be engrossed in composing but didn't know how to run a business. He swindled them out of their work at a low price. After collecting a little more, he took the work with him to another city. His targets all had personalities similar to the original owner of Fang Zhao's body. He was really addicted to robbing. Actually, it was because the shortcut was too fast. Just like when he had stolen 3 songs from the original owner of his body, he had a house and a car the moment he turned around. The feeling of getting rich overnight was too tempting. If Fang Zhao hadn't interfered, Fang Sheng wouldn't be doing so badly. Unfortunately, Fang Sheng's plan didn't pan out this time. The original composer turned the tables on him for stealing someone else's work. He was caught red-handed stealing someone else's work. The plaintiff even applied for a lie detector. Under the pressure of the lie detector and interrogation, Fang Sheng couldn't handle the pressure and confessed to stealing 3 songs from Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao arrived at the police station. After his identity was verified, he was taken to an interrogation room. This wasn't a place where suspects were interrogated, so it wasn't as stifling. The walls were transparent, so people walking around could be seen. There were also some relaxing snacks and tea on the side of the room. Fang Zhao, a square-faced man in his 40s sitting there, raised his head and asked, "I am." Fang Zhao sat down at the table, facing the man. "Did you bring the materials I told you to bring?" the man asked. "I brought it." Fang Zhao took out the notebook from his bag and handed it over. This notebook was used by the original owner of this body to compose music, and all the scores were recorded in it. The call Fang Zhao had received at the company had been for him to produce materials that could prove that he was the composer of the 3 pieces. The person in charge of the investigation and evidence collection took the notebook for verification. Current technology was able to determine the approximate date of the writing and whether it was composed at that time. Although Fang Sheng had admitted to stealing 3 songs from Fang Zhao, according to the rules, further proof was required. Of course, having the actual thing would be better. The person in charge of taking notes in the interrogation room noticed Fang Zhao looking outside. He turned his head and smiled. "Do you know who that guy in the blue checkered shirt and the 2 beside him are?" Fang Zhao looked across the table and asked, "Who?" "The crying girl is Wei Qian, a student at a music academy in the city. Her song was almost stolen by Fang Sheng. If it weren't for the secret code she used on the score to prove her identity as the original composer, her song would have been copyrighted. The guy in the blue checkered shirt in the middle is her brother, Yuqi. He's from Qian University of Science and Technology. When he found out his sister's song had been stolen, he went looking for Fang Sheng. He happened to see Fang Sheng secretly taking photos of someone else's complete draft. Yuqi kicked Fang Sheng there and called the police. This time, he borrowed money to hire a good lawyer. Multiple thefts, intentional assault, etc. I'm guessing Fang Sheng will be in jail for at least 10 years. You have to thank them. If they hadn't applied for a lie detector, we might not have been able to get you involved." The last time he had hired someone to steal Fang Zhao's bracelet, he had suffered heavy losses. So this time, Fang Sheng didn't dare hire someone else to steal the song. He did it himself. Unfortunately, he was caught red-handed stealing the score. "Hey, why didn't you sue him when your score was stolen?" the person asked Fang Zhao. "I couldn't sue him without evidence," Fang Zhao replied. "That's true. The kid is too cunning. He didn't leave any obvious evidence. We can't use a lie detector until he's found guilty." The person looked at Fang Zhao with pity. He knew his stuff had been stolen, but he couldn't do anything about it. All he could do was watch as the other party used the fruits of his labor to make money. It must have been hard. The forensics officer returned quickly and returned the notebook. The notebook served as proof. Fang Zhao filled out forms and signed his name. After all the procedures were followed, The composer of the 3 songs was no longer Fang Sheng, but Fang Zhao. Neon Culture had already taken the 3 songs Fang Sheng had stolen off the shelves when they received word from the police and returned the copyrights. "Can I go see Fang Sheng?" Fang Zhao asked. "Sure." Fang Zhao was taken to a temporary holding cell. That was where Fang Sheng was being held. "There's a headset." The person who had brought Fang Zhao over pointed out the earpiece to Fang Zhao and left. They still respected the privacy of their citizens. Fang Sheng looked haggard and dispirited. He didn't know what had gone wrong. He couldn't figure it out. Was it because he was unlucky? Everything was going according to plan. Everything should have gone smoothly. Why did things always go wrong at the critical moment? At first, Fang Sheng wanted to buy Wei Qian's song for $50,000. For someone like Wei Qian, who didn't understand the market and didn't have any means to make money, $50,000 was very tempting. It was enough for her to pay for 6 years of tuition and live a good life. Just as Wei Qian was about to sign the contract, a phone call from her brother made her hesitate. Fang Sheng didn't want to wait, so he stole Wei Qian's draft. Little did he know that Wei Qian's score contained a code. What was worse was that after he stole Wei Qian's score, he went to another school, got the student drunk, and stole the other person's score. Fang Sheng had wanted to buy the score at a low price, but the guy knew the market better than Wei Qian. He wouldn't sell for less than $150,000. Fang Sheng wasn't willing to pay that much. Hence, he decided to steal it again. He even planned to leave Qian City overnight after stealing the song. Unfortunately, he was caught red-handed by Yuqi. If he had a choice, Fang Sheng wouldn't have confessed to stealing Fang Zhao's song. But he knew he couldn't avoid a lie detector. If he didn't come clean, he might get a heavier sentence. After weighing the pros and cons, he chose to come clean. Since he couldn't hide, the worst he could do was spend 10 years in prison. If he performed well during the 10 years, he might get a lighter sentence. In the end, he might be released after 6 or 7 years. He would only be 30 then. He still had a long life ahead of him. Even though he'd lost all his money, he still had a chance to make a comeback. Fang Sheng tried to figure out how to deal with the situation. His face was still swollen, and he'd lost a few teeth. It wasn't a good feeling. As he was thinking, Fang Sheng saw someone bring Fang Zhao over. "Fang Zhao. Big Zhao. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have stolen your song. Please forgive me, considering we grew up together." As long as Fang Zhao forgave him and put in a good word for him, Fang Sheng could apply for a lighter sentence. Even if it couldn't be a few years, a few months or weeks would still count as a lighter sentence. After yelling for a minute, Fang Sheng realized he couldn't be heard on the other side of the transparent barrier. He quickly picked up his earpiece and pointed to the earpiece hanging on the outside, gesturing for Fang Zhao to pick it up. He assumed Fang Zhao wouldn't know how to use it. But Fang Zhao didn't move. He just stood there, staring at Fang Sheng as if he were an emotionless stranger. Fang Sheng was suddenly reminded of the time he'd borrowed the company's car to move to a black street after signing with Neon Culture. He'd met Fang Zhao then. Fang Zhao had had the same look in his eyes. As if a clap of thunder had struck the dark night sky, Fang Sheng jerked his head up and stared in shock at Fang Zhao on the other side of the transparent wall. "It's you." Fang Sheng looked like he'd seen a ghost. When he'd hired people to steal Fang Zhao's bracelet, he'd been robbed instead. He could say Yu Qing was helping Fang Zhao. Those people didn't want to offend Yu Qing, so they tried to rob him instead. But now, it was Fang Zhao. It was all Fang Zhao's doing. He'd let those 2 Blackstreet thugs rob him instead. Time and time again, just as he was about to succeed, Fang Zhao stopped his plans. Gritting his teeth, Fang Sheng stared at Fang Zhao on the other side of the barrier and spat out the words. "You did it." He finally understood. He hadn't thought about it before because he'd been following Fang Zhao's personality. But now Fang Zhao was like a different person. Coincidence? Luck? It was all bullshit. Fang Sheng's face was pale. His eyes were bloodshot. He clenched his fists as if he wanted to crush his earpiece. But soon, the hatred in his eyes turned to fear. He saw Fang Zhao smile at him. It looked like a casual smile, but it made Fang Sheng feel like he'd fallen into an ice cave. His blood froze. If all of this had been arranged by Fang Zhao, would there be anything else waiting for him in prison? The more Fang Sheng thought about it, the more terrified he became. "Let me out! Let me out!" Fang Sheng screamed in terror. On the other side of the barrier, Fang Zhao didn't look at him. He left. Fang Zhao walked out of the temporary detention center, grabbed a file, and left the police station. He walked down the street, turned a corner, and ran into Yuqi, who was waiting for him. "The balance has been received. The lawyer's fees have been paid," Yuqi said. Fang Zhao had been keeping an eye on Fang Sheng. When he learned that Fang Sheng had targeted Wei Qian, he'd sent for Yuqi and struck a deal. Fang Zhao was in charge of the money, and Yuqi was in charge of setting Fang Sheng up. "You're not going to tell your sister?" Fang Zhao asked. Yuqi's sister, Wei Qian, had no idea that her draft had been stolen. Yuqi had purposely created an opportunity for Fang Sheng. Later, Yuqi had seized the opportunity to catch Fang Sheng while he was stealing someone else's score. "I'll definitely tell her, but not now. This incident is to teach her a lesson. There's an old saying that goes, don't hurt people, but don't let your guard down." She took the bait the moment it was thrown. She was too gullible. Girls like her only care about composing and don't know how to guard against people. She'll be at a disadvantage once she leaves school. "I can't protect her all the time. By the way, thank you for your help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come out unscathed." Fang Sheng carried a knife with him. If Fang Zhao hadn't gotten someone to help him in the dark, Yuqi wouldn't have come out unscathed during the arrest. Yuqi checked the time. "I have to go. They're waiting for me. The next time there's this kind of scam, or justice, remember to call me." Fang Zhao watched Yuqi leave, then continued walking. To him, Fang Sheng was just a small interlude. He had only helped the original owner of the body get back the song's copyright. Whoosh! A flying car stopped at the intersection up ahead. Fang Zhao glanced at the license plate. It was the taxi he'd booked in advance. He hurried over and got in. "To Yangju Cemetery for Martyrs?" the driver asked. "Yeah. Memorial Day is almost here. There are a lot of people at the cemetery. I've already made 2 trips today. Are there a lot of people every year?" Fang Zhao asked. Chapter 62. Yangju Cemetery for Martyrs mainly buried martyrs from the Qian war zone during the period of destruction. After the establishment of the new era, another batch of graves had been moved over from other parts of Yangju. According to official data, there were tens of millions of people buried here. Most of the corpses had been cremated and compressed, so they only took up a small space. There were also some people who didn't even have a corpse left behind, only some belongings from when they were alive or just a written record of their name. People in the new era had a habit of going to the Cemetery of Martyrs every year around Memorial Day to pay their respects. Some people believed that after paying their respects, the martyrs would bless them with their wishes, while others simply followed tradition and paid a visit. Just as the taxi driver had said, because Memorial Day was approaching, there were indeed more people at the Cemetery for Martyrs. While on the road, Fang Zhao had been prompted by the driver to get a number online and queue up. The Cemetery for Martyrs had a designated area for paying respects, but space was limited. Every year during Memorial Day, it would be full, so he had to queue up. There were too many people paying their respects, and Fang Zhao's number was slightly behind. He would probably have to wait another 2 to 3 hours before it was his turn. However, before that, Fang Zhao planned to take a stroll around the other parts of the Cemetery for Martyrs. As he neared the cemetery, Fang Zhao could see a huge 500-meter-tall tombstone in the distance. This was the landmark of the area. The taxi driver only dropped Fang Zhao off near the cemetery. Because there were too many people, the parking lot was full, and there were still some cars queuing up on the road. Occasionally, Fang Zhao could see armed police patrolling. Every year at this time, a large number of police officers would be transferred over to maintain order. Seeing this, Fang Zhao decisively got out of the car. He could enter faster if he walked. There was no charge to enter the cemetery. All he had to do was check his identity. If there were no issues with his identity and the number of people in the cemetery was within the limit, he could enter directly. The roads outside the cemetery were very crowded, but once inside, it felt much more spacious. The cemetery was huge and was divided into several areas: the cemetery's core area, the Period of Destruction Memorial Hall, the plaza, the scattered graves area, the public worship area, and so on. The huge tombstone was part of the cemetery's core area and couldn't be casually entered. Most people who came here would head to the public worship area to pay their respects before heading to the tea houses and taverns at the side of the plaza to have tea and chat. The descendants of the martyrs would go to the scattered graves or the core area of the cemetery to pay their respects. Walking along the wide avenue, there were sidewalks on both sides of the avenue and shaded by trees. The species of the trees were Longxiang Tianluo, evergreen all year round. Even though Qian City had already entered the cold winter, the trees were still green and full of vitality. In front of the main road was the square of the cemetery. One could see many people walking around with their families. The shops on the side of the square were bustling with customers. Apart from the solemn moment when they paid their respects, most of the time, be it when they were walking on the square or resting in the tea house, the people who came were mostly smiling. This was not a sign of disrespect to the martyrs. At the beginning of the new era, there had been a requirement that the cemeteries be solemn and respectful, but that had changed later on. Before his death, a general who had been born during the period of destruction had told his descendants to smile more when they paid their respects to him. The new era that he and his comrades had fought so hard for wasn't for the sake of seeing them weep and weep. Therefore, gradually, people no longer deliberately put on a solemn face to pay their respects. Memorial Day was a day of celebration. Even if people came here to pay their respects, it was with a sense of celebration. They thanked the martyrs of the period of destruction for bringing peace to the new era. After the end of days, the people of the new era saw the people buried in the ground as their religion. These people were their saviors. The elderly would pray for the younger generation during their prayers. The younger generation hoped that their wishes would come true. They prayed for peace, marriage, fortune, and so on. There was still plenty of time to line up at the public memorial area. Fang Zhao did not head there. Instead, he crossed the square and headed for the core area where the tall tombstone was located. "Are you a descendant of the martyrs? Please show me your identification," the receptionist at the core area asked Fang Zhao. "No. Apologies, sir. You are not a descendant of the martyrs buried in the cemetery. If you wish to enter the core area, you will need to verify your identity and pay a $1,000 security deposit." "Would you like to enter?" the receptionist asked. The security deposit would not be refunded. This rule also stopped most people from entering. The core area of the cemetery was more important. It was not suitable for everyone to enter. Therefore, this rule was made after careful consideration by the park. The money paid by non-martyrs to enter the core area would be used for the maintenance of the park. It would not be pocketed by private individuals. Yes. Fang Zhao submitted his identity information. After the verification, he paid a $1,000 security deposit. The receptionist put a blue bracelet on Fang Zhao. It was used to pinpoint Fang Zhao's location and ensure that he would not wander off to places he was not supposed to. Most people who entered the core area of the cemetery were given bracelets. Different colors had different meanings. Blue represented ordinary worshippers, red represented descendants of martyrs, white represented civil servants, and black represented people with special status. Although he had to pay an additional fee, when Fang Zhao entered, he discovered that there were quite a number of people wearing the same blue bracelets as him walking around. However, there were surveillance cameras and police watching the surroundings. Those people had to think twice before doing anything. The most obvious feature in the core area was the tall tombstone. People beside it seemed minuscule. The huge grayish-white tombstone was like a pillar supporting the land. It stood there silently but resolutely. After 500 years of wind and rain, it was solemn and proud. Fang Zhao stood in front of the tombstone and looked up for a long time before withdrawing his gaze. He walked around the tombstone and walked behind it. Behind the huge tombstone were rows of smaller tombstones. With the big tombstone as the apex, they were arranged in a fan shape and extended backward. Each of these small tombstones represented a person who had passed away. The first row, which was also the row closest to the big tombstone, had 10 tombstones. They were slightly bigger than the tombstones behind. The tombstones closer to the front were bigger because the bigger the tombstone, the more words were engraved on them and the more important they were. Starting from the left, the first tombstone was that of founding-era Great General Wu Yang. The word Yang in Yangju was taken from his name. The 11 great generals of the founding era, other than Huangju, where the alliance headquarters were located, the other 11 continents were named after their surnames or names. For example, Leiju was named after the founding-era Great General Ha Wen Reno. After them, the alliance no longer had a great general military rank. Wu Yang, 17 years of the period of destruction, 56 years of the new era, founding-era Great General, second commander of the 5th Division, recovered Yangju. Wu Yang's tombstone had a brief description of his life, fully embodying the awe-inspiring and domineering nature of a general who had ended the calamity and created the new era. Fang Zhao smiled faintly as he read the official text. Probably nobody knew that Wu Yang was actually afraid of dogs. He just hid it well. As he continued walking forward, the smile on Fang Zhao's face disappeared. The second tombstone read, Fang Zhao, 99 years of the period of destruction, first commander of the 5th Division. The 5th Division was the predecessor of the Yangju military. The 5th Division had been established during the later stages of the period of destruction. After the founding of the era, it had become the Yangju military of the new era. In the new era, people used a new chronological system. The period of destruction began in the year of the period of destruction and ended in the year of the founding of the new era, lasting 102 years. 99 years of the period of destruction. According to the history books of the new era, after the most difficult period of the period of destruction, 99 years of the period of destruction, by the 100th year of the period of destruction, most of the threats had been eliminated. The next 2 years had been spent cleaning up the remnants and rebuilding the homeland. It had really been just one step away. Fang Zhao's gaze moved down from the tombstone. It seemed like he was buried under this tombstone. Chapter 63. Paying respects to his own grave was a complicated feeling. It was a little sad, but it was also a little fortunate. He had not been able to see the founding of the new era, nor had he been able to become one of the 11 legendary generals, but he had been reborn. He had not been able to see the founding of the new era, but he had seen the mature and prosperous new era 500 years later. Compared to the end of days, this was like a completely different world. If not for the memories he had inherited from his brain and the historical records and tombstones in the cemetery, Fang Zhao might have even wondered if he was still on his original planet. The changes were simply earth-shattering. As for the merits and praises of his previous life written on the tombstone, Fang Zhao only gave it a cursory glance and did not look any further. He dared to confirm that the person who wrote this was definitely not someone familiar with him, because the word composer was actually not written on the tombstone. That was his true calling, and people who knew him well would not forget that. Fang Zhao thought a lot in front of his own tombstone. He thought about the events of the end of days, about the records he had read in history books, and about the new era. If possible, Fang Zhao even wanted to dig up his grave to see what kind of funerary objects he had buried with him. Just as Fang Zhao was lowering his head to stare at the grave, someone walked over from the side. "Excuse me, may I trouble you to show me your identification?" Fang Zhao raised his head and looked over. It was a young police officer. When he looked over, he flashed his police ID to prove his identity as a police officer. At the same time, he showed Fang Zhao his official credentials. Wearing a white bracelet, he raised his hand to show Fang Zhao that he was an official. Not far away, a few police officers also looked over. They were members of the emergency response team that had been transferred over. Every year at this time, a few emergency response teams would be deployed to various parts of the cemetery to stand guard. If they encountered any suspicious people, they would step forward to investigate. The emergency response teams that had been transferred to the cemetery were experienced in dealing with emergencies. They were very good at apprehending criminals who had infiltrated the crowd. Although identity checks had been conducted in the core area of the cemetery before entering, if there were any suspicious people in the core area, they had the authority to conduct a second check. There were a few people who had just entered the area and were walking over. When they saw the situation, they immediately turned and walked in other directions. After walking far away, they turned their heads and looked over, discussing something in low voices. Fang Zhao raised an eyebrow. Had he been standing in front of the grave for too long and been suspected? In accordance with the other party's request, Fang Zhao brought up the identity information on his bracelet. The policeman looked at the identity information on the hologram and compared it with the appearance, confirming that it was not an impersonation. Fang Zhao. Sounds familiar. I think there's someone called. The policeman turned around and saw the name on the tombstone. Fang Zhao. Looking at the name on the tombstone, then looking at the name displayed on Fang Zhao's identification information, the policeman was momentarily surprised, but he quickly smiled. Not a bad name. There were billions of people in the new era, and there were countless people with the same names as those who had died during the period of destruction. Every year at this time, many people would go to the cemetery to pay their respects. Thank you for your cooperation. Please continue. After checking Fang Zhao's personal information, the police officer walked back. As he turned around, he gestured to his companions to indicate that there was no problem. After Fang Zhao's identity was checked again, he didn't continue to stay at the tombstone. Instead, he went to look at the other tombstones. The names, both familiar and unfamiliar, evoked many memories in him. Fang Zhao also felt that there were people watching him. It was those few policemen, but he wasn't angry. Every year, these people guarded the cemetery on Memorial Day. The cemetery's safety was guaranteed, and there was no need to worry about the tombstones being damaged. Over 500 years, the tombstones and the cemetery grounds hadn't suffered much damage. Other than the maintenance staff, it was these people who guarded the cemetery at critical times. They were very powerful juniors. Fang Zhao exclaimed in his heart. The few people watching Fang Zhao didn't know what Fang Zhao thought of them. Lian Kai, is there really no problem with that person? A young policeman asked. Lian Kai was the policeman who had gone to check Fang Zhao's identity. No problem, Lian Kai said as he glanced at Fang Zhao walking among the tombstones. Then why did you go over to check his identity? Another policeman asked. I don't know. I just thought that person was a little strange. He gave me the feeling that he wanted to dig up the tombstone, Lian Kai said. Another person with the same name as the martyr. Hearing this, the others understood in their hearts. What's his identity? A policeman asked Lian Kai. A composer, Lian Kai said. There are 3 types of people that I can't understand. One is a philosopher, and the other is an artist. The thoughts of philosophers are too profound for my intelligence to understand. Artists, on the other hand, blend craziness and calmness. They aren't as close to the secular world as politicians are. Instead, they admire themselves in a world that ordinary people can't understand. I also can't figure out what's going on in their heads. What's the other type? The policeman next to him asked Lian Kai. The other type is a pervert. Then do we still keep an eye on that kid? Keep an eye on him. Although I don't think he will do anything to endanger public security, no one knows what he will do next. It's better to keep an eye on him, Lian Kai said. Fang Zhao didn't pay attention to the gazes of those people. After walking through the cemetery area in front of him, he looked up and saw that the uneven ground was densely packed with tombstones. He couldn't see the end of it. The cemetery area was too big. Fang Zhao couldn't walk through it in a short period of time. It was almost his turn at the public worship area, so Fang Zhao followed a small path in the cemetery area and walked out of the core area. When he looked up, it was still a cemetery area that he couldn't see the end. Behind the core area was the scattered graves area. Some had been moved here after the cemetery was built, while others had been added later. They belonged to the martyrs of the new era. Although this area was called the scattered graves area, it wasn't messy. There were more worshippers in the scattered graves area, and the security wasn't as strict as in the core area. Some parents could be seen walking up to the tombstones with their children, bowing respectfully, placing a bouquet of flowers, and then chattering away. They were probably the family members or descendants of the martyrs. The cemetery area was huge. It would take a long time to walk out, and running was not allowed in the cemetery area. If you were in a hurry, you had to take the cemetery's special train. The ticket wasn't expensive, just $1. Fang Zhao found a window seat after boarding the train and watched as it left the scattered graves area and passed by the core area. However, as it passed by, the passengers in the train suddenly started talking. Fang Zhao saw many people gathering at the core area, but because there were people blocking the way, he could only stand at the side and crane his neck to look. 5 black cars descended from the sky near the core area and drove into the core area along the road. Most places in the cemetery did not allow cars to drive, and the sky was a restricted area for private cars. The private cars that could be seen in the cemetery were all special cars, and being able to descend from the sky and drive into the core area was even more of a privilege. Look at the license plate. It's someone from the Wu family, a student in the front seat said with a pair of binoculars. A few young girls beside him immediately crowded over. Is there a Wu Yun? Classmate, let me borrow your binoculars. Don't bother looking. The car has already entered. You won't be able to see it, the boy said. Wu Yun was a famous movie star in Yangzhou. He did not belong to any of Yenzhou's top 3 entertainment companies. He had the financial resources to hire a team to manage his company because he was from the Wu family. Although Yangzhou was named after great General Wu Yang, it was different from Leizhu's Renault family. After Wu Yang's death, the Wu family had experienced a civil war that nearly led to the destruction of the entire Wu family. This was also why Yenzhou's successive governors rarely had the surname Wu. However, even if the Wu family did not become the #1 family in Yangzhou like the Lei family, they were not to be underestimated. Especially in the past 100 years, the Wu family's business had developed even better. Even if they could not become #1 in Yangzhou, they were still one of Yenzhou's big families. The Wu family's juniors. Fang Zhao looked at the crowd surrounding the core area. When he had first been reborn, he had seen records of the Wu family online. He had once wondered if Wu Yang would have executed those unfilial descendants who had stirred up Yenzhou's internal strife if he were still alive. The Wu Yun that the few students had mentioned could only be considered a junior in the current Wu family. In those 5 cars, other than Wu Yun, there should be other Wu family members. Fang Zhao felt it was a pity that he had not been able to meet those Wu family juniors. However, there was still a long way to go. There was bound to be a time when they would meet. The cars had already left the core area and were heading toward the public memorial area. At the same time, the Wu family's 5 extended black flying cars had already entered the cemetery's core area. The person with the highest seniority walked in front while the juniors followed behind. Every year before Memorial Day, the Wu family would make a trip here to pay their respects. This was a memorial activity that belonged to the Wu family. Then, on Memorial Day, they would carry out a memorial activity with Yenzhou's governor and a few other important people. Regardless of what the juniors were thinking, they had to put on an expression similar to their elders. They looked at the gravestones with 30% respect and 70% seriousness. Actually, after such a long time, there was not much affection. After all, he had been dead for close to 500 years, but there was still some respect. Without Wu Yang, there would not be the Wu family of today. According to the Wu family's traditional etiquette, after paying their respects in front of Wu Yang's gravestone, the Wu family elders paid their respects to the gravestone beside it and even presented it with a bouquet of fresh flowers. Every generation of Wu family members who saw this gravestone after Wu Yang would be deeply moved. If this person had not passed on first, Yangzhou would not have been called Yangzhou. However, among the Wu family members today, a few had doubtful expressions when they saw the name on the gravestone. Fang Zhao. Chapter 64. Fang Zhao did not see anyone from the Wu family, nor did he return to the core cemetery. His reservation at the public memorial area was about to arrive. If he missed it, he would not be able to line up again. Paying his respects was the main point. Compared to the core burial area and the scattered burial area, the public worship area was much livelier. There were a few majestic halls in the worship area. They had no fancy decorations and were mainly grey in color. There were reliefs on the outer walls depicting the battles during the period of destruction. The main hall was much taller than the side halls. At the entrance were two 30-meter tall statues. One was of Yenzhou's most famous character, Wu Yang. The other was of Fang Zhao. The statue's base was engraved with the same words as those on the tombstones. Although Fang Zhao knew he had become one of the guardians of the main hall when he had looked up the Cemetery of Martyrs on the internet, seeing it in person still made him feel complicated. The statue's appearance was probably based on the later stages of the period of destruction, but it had been beautified during the making of the statue. The facial features were angular, muscular, tendons protruding, eyelids not drooping, and cheeks not sunken. Although there were wrinkles and scars on the face, it looked more like a middle-aged man. Wearing a combat uniform, the statue had a majestic and awe-inspiring appearance. His head was slightly raised, as if he was watching the battlefield in the distance. The face of Wu Yang's statue was a little more relaxed, and it was very similar to the Wu Yang that people had seen in real images that had been passed down. At that time, it was the founding era, and Wu Yang was also smiling more often. He gave off a more amiable feeling, and although he wasn't as sharp, he didn't lose the dignity of a leader. This was the great man who had led Yangzhou into the new era and rebuilt their homeland. The two statues silently watched the people coming and going in front of the main hall every day. There were many statues in Qian City. Some symbolized taste, some were just for fun. But here, people maintained a kind of respect for the statues in front of the main hall. Unlike music, the statues had a kind of static appeal and impact, exuding a feeling of immortality. Nothing was truly immortal. Immortality was just a relative thing. Every era would produce some immortal figures, and some things would happen that were worth remembering and cherishing for a long time. Fang Zhao had never imagined that he would be one of them. After staring at the statues for a while, Fang Zhao walked to the open-air waiting area to the side. The worship took place in the main hall. The side hall was a place for people to rest. If there were a lot of people who had made reservations, they would book a room in the side hall to rest while waiting. In the waiting area, a middle-aged couple was sitting beside Fang Zhao. The two were discussing which method they would use to pay their respects this year. From their conversation, Fang Zhao could tell that they were mainly praying for their children, especially their eldest son, who was currently serving in the military. Hey, are they still mining now? Do they have a holiday on Memorial Day? The woman muttered in a low voice, I haven't received any news for many days. I don't know how he's doing. Is he sick? Is there a holiday for Memorial Day? Did you eat well? The man patted his wife's hand and comforted her. It's only been 5 days since we last received the video. There are still 5 more days before we can receive the next video message. Memorial Day is also a holiday, but there aren't as many as here. We might only be able to rest on Memorial Day. During his military service, he could not contact his family at any time. He could only send a video message to his family once every 10 days. Even if it was Memorial Day, even if there were holidays, he could not return home. He could only wait until his military service was over. Along the way, Fang Zhao encountered quite a number of people praying for the family members of those serving in the military. There were many such people every year, as there were quite a number of people serving in the military. Diagonally behind him were a few young students gathered together to discuss which posture they should use to pray this year to ensure that they did not fail their subjects. People in the new era could come up with all sorts of ways to pay their respects. Some people even felt that since they had not been able to fulfill their wishes during last year's prayers, they should change the method, the posture, the objects, the setting, and so on. Would that work? As he was looking around, Fang Zhao's personal terminal notified him that it was his turn. Following the notification, Fang Zhao collected his ticket and entered the main hall. The bustling noises outside seemed to have been muted. The main hall was more solemn. There were many reliefs and projected images of the period of destruction. Some were pictures of people, others were scenes, and the images of the martyrs had a brief introduction to them. Fang Zhao also saw his own image. The image was taken during the later stages of the period of destruction. He looked older and had many scars on his face. At first glance, he looked a little scary, and this was the result of beautifying the image. Actually, even if Fang Zhao from the previous generation was standing here, he might not be recognized. Fang Zhao was different from those people after the founding of the new era. He did not leave many images behind. Even if he did, it was not meticulously arranged. Before the period of destruction ended, who would have had the time to pick out clothes to clean up? Whether it was lighting, clothing, background, expression, or anything else, everything was the same as usual. Fang Zhao looked at the ticket in his hand and headed for the main hall, Area A. The public worship area, Area A had smaller worship rooms. Fang Zhao was alone, so he was assigned to Area A. Fang Zhao found the worship room according to the number on his ticket and scanned his ticket on the device at the entrance. This was Fang Zhao's first time paying his respects in the new era, and it was a fresh experience. To ensure privacy, there were no surveillance cameras inside, and there were no other people. There was a screen at the side of the door that displayed a few popular ways of paying respects and recommended packages. There were also worship instructions, but Fang Zhao did not look at them. After skimming through them, he chose an altar, a 500 milliliter bottle of wine, and a retro wine bowl. Different people, different ways of paying respects, different customs, and different items could be selected. This was like a self-service shopping machine, but these items had to be paid for. Worship items, donations, and other such items were the main source of the cemetery's annual maintenance expenses. Fang Zhao did not even ask for a cushion to kneel on. He held a glass of wine in one hand and a bowl in the other. He did not change the mode of the worship room, going straight to the default mode. The holographic image was of a miniature core cemetery. The huge gravestone was only about 2 meters tall after it had been shrunk. Behind the huge gravestone was a cluster of smaller gravestones that glowed like a vast sea of stars. Standing in front of the gravestone image, Fang Zhao knew that the direction he was facing was where the huge gravestone in the core cemetery area was. He stood there in a daze for 2 minutes, watching the miniature gravestone image, then glancing at the cluster of gravestones behind the gravestone. Fang Zhao poured the wine. For the first bowl, Fang Zhao poured it directly into the altar. To all those who had died in that era. For the second bowl, Fang Zhao drank half and poured the remaining half into the altar. To those old comrades whom he would never see again. For the third bowl, Fang Zhao drank it all without leaving a drop. To himself. After finishing 3 bowls, Fang Zhao put down the wine bottle and bowl, took one last look at the gravestone image, and turned to leave. Before leaving, he donated $1 million. He did not purchase those virtual worship items, choosing to donate money directly. Simple and direct. Other than the worship room, Fang Zhao did not look at the other furnishings in the hall. Instead, he left the main hall and crossed the plaza. There were many people walking around in the plaza. Under the sunlight, there were children laughing and running. There were also a few temporary shopping areas in the plaza, lined up with shops. People stopped in front of those small shops to buy some souvenirs. More than 500 years have passed. Once again, Fang Zhao clearly recognized this fact. He was no longer the Fang Zhao of the end of days, but a person of the new era. He should not be so fixated on the past. This was a rare opportunity that others could not even beg for. He should look forward and take a good look at this new and prosperous world. Looking at the situation in the plaza, Fang Zhao could not help but smile. He had not seen the day when the new era was founded, but he had transcended more than 500 years and lived in the prosperous new era. "Hey, brother, would you like 2 commemorative paintings?" The voice of a nearby vendor brought Fang Zhao back to his senses. He looked to the side. This temporary shop had many paintings of all sizes on display. It was a small stall that specialized in selling paintings. The vendors at these stalls were employees in charge of cleaning and maintenance in the cemetery. Every year at this time, they would turn into small vendors and sell their wares in the designated area of the cemetery plaza. People of the new era mostly only had one faith, and that was the heroes who had created the new era. They did not believe in God, but it was unknown whether it was formed spontaneously among the people or whether it was driven by merchants who saw the benefits, but the people had developed a habit of pasting 2 paintings on their doors on Memorial Day. It was a way to remember and to pray for blessings. What were they pasting? Of course, it was the portraits of the heroes of the Cemetery of Martyrs. Seeing that Fang Zhao seemed interested in the commemorative paintings, the vendor smiled even more eagerly. Come, take a look. This year's new model was designed by a famous designer. It's a new waterproof, stain-resistant material. We are the only place in the entire world that has this new model. You can buy it and paste it on your office or home. Even if you don't use it yourself, you can give it to your friends and family. The vendor rambled on and on about his wares. Fang Zhao was a little stunned. He pointed to the 2 paintings in the vendor's hands. Who are these 2? You don't recognize them? The vendor still felt that Fang Zhao's eyesight was not good enough. He opened his mouth in an exaggerated manner, then put on an eager smile and pointed to the 2 paintings in his hands. He then pointed to the pile beside him. The 2 statues in front of the main hall are the same heroes. General Wu Yang and Commander Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao. He felt like he was choking on a glutinous rice ball. Unlike most people, the employees of the Cemetery of Martyrs were very familiar with the information of the martyrs buried in the cemetery. They could recite hundreds of names with their eyes closed, not to mention those who had left a deep mark in the history of the Cemetery of Martyrs. This was a compulsory exam for the Cemetery of Martyrs every year. You don't even know the martyrs of the Cemetery of Martyrs, and you still want to work in the Cemetery of Martyrs? The vendor's mouth could not stop. Not only did he introduce the same heroes in the main hall, he also introduced other heroes. He illustrated the glorious achievements of those people recorded in the history books and spoke passionately and forcefully. It was as if buying a painting would invite a war god back. Fang Zhao looked at the other paintings on the vendor's display with a wooden face. Yes, the artistic commemorative paintings might be a little exaggerated, but they also revealed the characteristics of many people. For example, some people had big beards, some people had bald heads, some people had moles, and so on. They could still match people. For example, Fang Zhao's painting had all the scars on his face. It was just that after the art was done, it was less ferocious. Fang Zhao really admired the artist who could draw the scars like a tattoo and add a sense of fashion. But, what the hell is that red cape? When did I ever wear that? Seeing Fang Zhao staring at one of the paintings, the vendor said, "This year, there are a few new paintings of the same heroes in the main hall. Many people buy them. Even if they don't stick them in their own homes, it's good to keep them as souvenirs. Oh, there are others. They are all famous heroes from our continent, from the period of destruction and the new era. They are also new commemorative paintings released this year. If you have a descendant of a martyr in your family, you can choose." Fang Zhao raised his hand and gestured from one end of the stall to the other. "These commemorative paintings of heroes, regardless of the style, give me one of them. Fang Zhao's, give me 10 of them." Chapter 65. Fang Zhao left the Cemetery of Martyrs with a large stack of commemorative paintings. First, he made a trip to his new home, the penthouse he had bought from the old artist Xue Jing in Qian City. The renovations were completed quickly after the transfer. Fang Zhao bought some simple furniture and didn't do much else, as he spent most of his time in the office. When he got home, he put down the other commemorative paintings and only brought the martyr Fang Zhao memorial painting back to the office. Then, he distributed a set to everyone in the department. 6 different styles, 6 to a set. "Boss, this is..." Fu Yingtian looked at the commemorative painting in his hands, a little confused. He didn't have much of an interest in commemorative paintings, but his parents loved them. Every year, they would buy some commemorative paintings of martyrs from the period of destruction and paste them on their doors. Sometimes, they would even paste them on the doors of their rooms. He didn't know if it was custom or if they truly believed in the blessings of the martyrs. "I know this commemorative painting." WNU recognized the face of the person in the painting the moment she saw the scar on the face. "Who?" Zhu Wen and the others looked over. WNU glanced at Fang Zhao. "Big Zhao, why did you buy a commemorative painting of a martyr with the same name?" "A martyr with the same name?" Zhu Wen and the others exclaimed. Don't tell me this commemorative painting is of the one mentioned in history books. They knew about the big shot from the period of destruction. In history class, if he hadn't passed away so early, Yang Ju would have had a different name. However, there were many people with the same name as martyrs. From primary school to university graduation to work, Fang Zhao had encountered many. At first, he had been curious and surprised, but now he was indifferent. Even when he had found out that the virtual idol project had been given to a newcomer named Fang Zhao, he hadn't been surprised. Oh, it's him. Zhu Wen looked at the commemorative painting in his hands. Back in secondary school, there was a test about him. Yeah, I even saw students complaining online about the test about the two statues in front of the main hall of Yenzhou's Cemetery of Martyrs public worship area. I heard that most students couldn't answer correctly. Some only guessed correctly Wu Yang. After all, it's Yang Ju, and everyone knows Great General Wu Yang. As for the other statue, few guessed correctly, Pang Pusong said as he studied the commemorative painting in his hands. When we took the test, we never got it wrong. Zheng Huang smiled and glanced at WNU. WNU was also delighted. This kind of question was a freebie for them. Ever since they had learned that there had been a martyr named Fang Zhao, it had left a deep impression on them. The others felt that the boss of their department was really interesting. He was giving out military enlistments before the Memorial Day holiday and even gave out a commemorative portrait of the martyr with the same name. Was the brain of an artist really that special? As if recalling something, Zhu Wen said, "Hey, boss, when you become famous in the future, do you think people will invite you to play the role of Army Commander Fang Zhao during the period of destruction?" "Hehe, you can practice your acting skills in advance." Fang Zhao didn't reply. He just gave Zhu Wen a dumbfounded look. Zhu Wen saw the look in Fang Zhao's eyes and felt that what he had just said was ridiculous. How could such a situation happen? The others also found it funny. Fang Zhao was a composer. In the future, when his identity as the original composer of the 100-year period of destruction series was made public, he would also be promoted to a great composer. No one doubted that he would be famous in the composing circles. The first 3 movements were the best proof. But Fang Zhao was not an actor. Furthermore, only the Global Film and Television Association and the descendants of many martyrs could film a film that involved actual historical figures during the period of destruction. The entertainment industry in the early days of the new era was indeed messy. All sorts of twisted history, be it in film, music, or virtual idols, there were too many cases of people making fun of martyrs to attract attention. Later on, under the vehement opposition of many martyrs' descendants, a worldwide ban was issued to stop this mess. Anyone who wanted to film a film that involved actual historical figures during the period of destruction had to go through many rounds of vetting and obtain the consent of the martyrs' descendants involved. Because there were too many restrictions, when filming films involving actual historical figures, the various continents tried their best to only choose one or a few important figures who had a deep influence during the period of destruction. This was because the application process would be troublesome if too many were used. Furthermore, ever since the Global Film and Television Association had issued the ban, up until now, not a single film had actually mentioned Army Commander Fang Zhao during the period of destruction. However, Zhu Wen and the others did not know that the look in Fang Zhao's eyes did not indicate that this situation was impossible. Rather, he was thinking, I am who I am. Do I still need to act? Hey, speaking of which, I have long heard that the Global Film and Television Association is interested in launching a film that involves many important figures during the period of destruction. Why hasn't it started yet? Rodney, who was beside them, recalled a newspaper report he had read back in university. It has been shelved for many years. They have tried to restart it a few times, but it has never succeeded. I have no idea why. Song Miao usually paid more attention to matters related to the entertainment industry. Hearing Rodney mention it, she said, however, it has been mentioned more frequently in recent years. I reckon that this project might really have a chance. If it is really launched, it will be a top-notch blockbuster that will shake the world, Zhu Wen said. The others nodded in agreement. If this film project was really launched, the investors would surely be big families from various continents, such as Leizu's Renault family, Yenzhou's Wu family, and so on. Their ancestors would be featured in the film, and they were all important figures of the founding era. The casting requirements would surely be stringent. Those who could take on such an important role would surely be global superstars. Perhaps even the A-list movie stars of Silver Wing would only be vying for minor roles, and they would be the kind that would do everything they could to squeeze in. That was a truly high-end film project. Losers like them could only discuss it here. It was impossible for them to have the ability to participate. Song Miao turned to Fang Zhao and said, however, no matter how big a film project is, it cannot be without a soundtrack. Boss, work hard. Who knows, you might even be able to fight for the soundtrack rights. There can't be only one soundtrack for that kind of film project, and it can't be from just one company. We can still fight for it when the time comes. Although she said that, Song Miao actually didn't think Fang Zhao would get it. Based on the information she had gathered, for a film project of that level, the soundtrack would be from a powerful, established studio or a veteran composer in the soundtrack circle. Given Fang Zhao's age and influence, the chances of him being chosen were not high. It might be possible in another 100 or 80 years, but by then, the project would have already been launched and completed. Seeing that Fang Zhao seemed to be thinking seriously about something, Song Miao and Zhu Wen looked at each other, thinking that Fang Zhao had taken what Song Miao had just said seriously. They coughed lightly and were about to change the topic to something more practical and inspiring when they heard Fang Zhao's bracelet ring. Someone was calling. Director Duan? Fang Zhao answered. Come up for a bit, Duan Chenji said, then emphasized, you are alone. With that, she hung up. Director Duan wants to ask about the progress of the fourth movement again? Probably. Given how much importance Director Duan places on this series, she might also want to ask about the project. Zhu Wen and the others discussed. However, Fang Zhao felt that it might not necessarily be about the fourth movement. He had just sent Duan Chenji a progress report on the fourth movement yesterday. There was no need for her to ask again today. I'll go up for a bit. The others returned to their posts to continue working, while Fang Zhao took the elevator to Duan Chenji's office on the top floor. When he entered, he discovered that other than Duan Chenji and the 4 assistants and secretaries, there were 2 other strangers. When Fang Zhao walked in, both of them looked over. The person who was about the same age as Fang Zhao had an obvious look of suspicion in his eyes. However, the older person only revealed a look of sizing him up. There was no contempt or doubt in his eyes. The 2 were not dressed extravagantly, nor did they have any flashy accessories. At first glance, they looked like the average tech worker in the crowd. But on their chests were a fiery red bird emblem with an S in the shape of a bird. Just this small emblem alone was enough to make many people pay attention. This was the best proof of their identity. People from Fiery Bird. Fiery Bird was the world's top video game company. If it claimed to be number 2, no one would dare claim to be number 1. Take a seat. Duan Chenji pointed to the seat beside her, then looked at the 2 people. This is Fang Zhao, the composer of the first 3 movements of the 100-year period of destruction. As she spoke, she turned to Fang Zhao and introduced the 2. This is Fiery Bird's sound effects team's team leader, Yu Chuan, and Mr. Beaver. Deputy team leader, Deputy. Yu Chuan waved his hands. He did not feel that there was anything awkward about adding the word deputy. After saying that, Yu Chuan turned to Fang Zhao with a smile. The members of our team love the 3 movements of the 100-year period of destruction. We are also looking forward to the 4th movement. As for our purpose, it has nothing to do with endorsements. We are only in charge of sound effects. This time, we are here to extend an invitation to Mr. Fang. An invitation? Fang Zhao asked. Yes. We would like to invite Mr. Fang to compose a piece. A custom-made piece. That's right. A 2-minute opening animation background music for Battle of the Century. To tell you the truth, we actually prepared 4 pieces and planned to use one of them, but... At this point, Yu Chuan once again sized up Fang Zhao. After listening to the first 3 movements of the 100-year period of destruction, our sound effects team leader was not satisfied with the 3 pieces that we prepared beforehand. It's not that they are not good, but they are still lacking in compatibility with the game. So, we have already sent out invitations to 18 master composers and studios across 12 continents. Mr. Fang, this is the last stop. Our sound effects team leader personally instructed us to extend an invitation. I'm the 19th. Fang Zhao asked. Yes. Fang Zhao was silent. They had invited 19 composers and promised to buy all 19 of their compositions, but when it came to the actual game, Fiery Bird would only choose the one that they were most satisfied with. Chapter 66. Mr. Fang is the 19th and last invitee. Yu Chuanhuan smiled and looked at Fang Zhao. In a serious tone, he said, but if Mr. Fang has other plans or feels that time is too tight, you can decline. I forgot to mention that the first draft has to be ready by March. As Yu Chuan spoke, he was also observing Fang Zhao's expression. From the moment Fang Zhao had entered, he had sensed that this young man was different from his peers. He was not faking his composure. Even when he saw the Fiery Bird insignia on their chests, he only revealed a hint of surprise. He did not deliberately hide it or suppress his excitement. And now, when he was told that he would be invited to compose the background music for the opening animation of a game produced by the famous Fiery Bird Company, he did not feel excited. He just sat there and listened attentively, as if he was just listening to a report. Listening to a report. Yu Chuan was startled by the analogy that suddenly flashed through his mind. Maybe he had been too busy sending out invitations recently. That was why he was hallucinating. Tossing aside his thoughts, Yu Chuan looked at Fang Zhao again. Fang Zhao's fingers were casually tapping on his thighs. He could not find any pattern, and Fang Zhao himself seemed to be daydreaming. Cough. Duan Qianji could not stand it any longer and coughed to remind Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao's fingers paused and turned to Yu Chuan. I need to watch the opening animation first. Yu Chuan thought to himself, can you hear what I just said when you're daydreaming? Sure. But Mr. Fang needs to sign a confidentiality agreement first, Yu Chuan said. Fang Zhao's request was reasonable. If Fang Zhao had agreed without even watching the opening animation, Yu Chuan would have been disappointed. I understand the rules. After the confidentiality agreement was signed, Yu Chuan handed Fang Zhao a palm-sized projector in the shape of the Fiery Bird logo. The image was projected into the air. Fang Zhao watched the short 2-minute opening animation seriously. Actually, animation was just a term of endearment passed down in the industry. When Fang Zhao actually saw this video, he realized that the degree of realism was too high. It was as if it had been shot in real life. This image was not inferior to the movie's Silver Wing invested in every year. While Fang Zhao was watching the opening 2-minute clip, Yu Chuan was still observing Fang Zhao. In his mind, he was assessing whether Fang Zhao really had the ability to compose a movement of such quality, and whether there was a possibility of continuing their collaboration. Fang Zhao watched very seriously. At the same time, his fingers started tapping again. He didn't move much, and Yu Chuan couldn't see any pattern. After the 2-minute video ended, Fang Zhao turned to Yu Chuan and said, "All right, 1 month is enough." Everyone else in the room looked at Fang Zhao. Duan Qianji had wanted to stop Fang Zhao, but it was too late. The other Fiery Bird employee, Bai Fu, who was sitting beside Yu Chuan, had his eyes wide open, as if he could not believe that Fang Zhao was actually so confident. Confidence is good, but overconfidence is stupid. Bai Fu had followed Yu Chuan to invite 18 composers. Of these 18 composers, some were a little reluctant when they heard the deadline of before 3 months. And after watching the opening animation, quite a few of them had said try their best, meaning that they could only do their best and could not guarantee that they would be able to compose before March. The higher one flew, the more they cherished their feathers. They would only release their works if they were satisfied with them. If they were not satisfied, they would rather give up a great opportunity than let it tarnish their reputation. However, Fang Zhao was the last of the 19 composers on the list. His status was also the lowest. He was a composer with no reputation at all. Yet after watching the opening animation, he actually so confidently agreed. Bai Fu couldn't help but want to say something, but he was stopped by a look from Yu Chuan. He could only swallow the words that were about to leave his mouth. In that case, I await the good news. Yu Chuan did not stay long. After bidding farewell, he brought Bai Fu and left through the garage on the top floor. The flying car that Yu Chuan and Bai Fu had driven did not have any obvious Fiery Bird insignia. It was low-key and unremarkable. Right now, they still did not want the outside world to know that the background music for the opening animation had yet to be finalized. Inside the car, Bai Fu asked Yu Chuan, puzzled, "Why didn't you ask more?" To test whether Fang Zhao is really the composer of those three movements and whether he really has the ability to produce a work of sufficient quality in a little more than a month. It was already the end of January. Composing before March meant that they basically only had a month's time in February. Composing a piece that could match a large-scale game project in a month's time was extremely difficult. Even a novice in the industry would understand how difficult it was to compose a piece that could match a large-scale game project. Yu Chuan laughed and shook his head. "All that is meaningless. We don't understand Fang Zhao, and we don't understand Silver Wing. Everything is conjecture. The answer will be revealed when he sends the work over." And after Yu Chuan and Bai Fu left, Duan Chenji no longer had any misgivings. "Fang Zhao, this matter cannot be forced. If you feel that you are not confident, it is not too late to take back your words." As long as Yu Chuan and Bai Fu did not leave Yangzhou, Duan Chenji could stop them first. "It is not forced. I agreed to accept the invitation because I can guarantee that I can produce a piece that I am satisfied with within a month. As for whether they like it or not, I cannot guarantee that. Besides the 4 movements of the 100-year period of destruction, you still have the inspiration to compose a piece of music of that quality." Duan Chenji was surprised. Although she was not a composer, she knew how important inspiration was to compose. For the deputy team leader to personally travel to various continents to issue invitations at this point in time, it was clear that the accompaniment for this opening animation was not easy. "I didn't have any before, but I do now." Duan Chenji looked at Fang Zhao and was silent for 2 seconds. "Okay, I got it." Fang Zhao went downstairs and continued to oversee the production of the 4th movement. In Duan Chenji's office, an assistant asked worriedly, "Director Duan, is it really all right to hand it over to Fang Zhao? If the quality of Fang Zhao's work did not meet Fiery Bird's requirements, would Fiery Bird hold a grudge against their company? Do you think that Fiery Bird's sound effects department's professionals are reliable in terms of their understanding of music and taste?" Duan Chenji asked. The assistant did not utter a word. This question was too simple. If they were not reliable, would they have stayed at Fiery Bird until now? Previously, Yu Chuan had said that the invitation to Fang Zhao had been sent by the head of the sound effects department. How could someone who had managed to become the head of the sound effects department of the world's top game producer, Fiery Bird, be retarded? Duan Chenji would not really use this to test them. She was just using this topic to tell them one thing. As far as I know, Yu Chuan and the rest have issued another urgent invitation. Out of 19 producers, there is only one in Yangzhou. In Yangzhou, Silver Wing's Flying Steed, Neon Culture's Metal Rush, and Tongshan True Entertainment's 4 Dimensions. These 3 companies' ace copyrighted music studios had all collaborated with Fiery Bird. In the past, Silver Wing's Flying Pegasus, Neon Culture's Metal Rush, and Tongshan True Entertainment's 4 Dimensions. These 3 companies' ace copyrighted music studios had all collaborated with Fiery Bird. Virtual idols were virtual idols, but as Yu Chuan had said, Fiery Bird's various departments had their own responsibilities and did not interfere with one another. Elsewhere, after Fang Zhao arrived at the department, he did not mention anything about Fiery Bird's invitation. Seeing that Fang Zhao did not say anything, the others did not pursue the matter. They didn't ask for much, as long as they worked hard and got paid. Fang Zhao sat in his office, took out a notebook, and started writing music scores. He wrote down the inspiration that had appeared in his mind while watching the 2-minute video. The first 3 movements of the 100-year period of destruction had been composed by Fang Zhao in his previous life. After his rebirth, he had only made some minor changes and rearranged them. The 4th movement was a collection of inspirations he had gathered after his rebirth. And now, the intermittent characters that appeared on the paper were a collection of inspiration that he had gained after going to the Cemetery of Martyrs and watching the opening scene that Yu Chuan had given him. After writing the first draft, Fang Zhao continued to think back on today's experiences, especially the Cemetery of Martyrs and the 2-minute opening sequence. The first draft needed to be revised, so Fang Zhao continued to look for areas that could be improved to make it better. At this time, Seng Huang came to look for him. Big Zhao, the fourth movement is progressing smoothly. It might be completed before the 25th. You said that once the fourth movement is completed, our department will go on vacation. Just like last year, WNU and I will not go back. When Zheng Huang said go back, he was referring to their birthplace, Yangbei City. When his family had been in trouble, the government had given them quite a lot of compensation. A few relatives had been greedy for the compensation, but Zheng Huang had held onto it tightly. WNU's situation was similar, just not as severe as Zheng Huang's. However, WANU didn't want to go back either. The two of them hadn't returned to Yangbei City since university. Will you spend Memorial Day with us? After all, it's just me and WNU. The more people, the livelier. We're moving to a new house this year. It's bigger, and we've prepared guest rooms, Zheng Huang said. Fang Sheng had betrayed them and was now in some unknown prison. Shi Hong hadn't appeared after parting ways with Fang Zhao. This year's Memorial Day would probably be spent by Fang Zhao alone. No, there was also a dog. I won't be going over to your place. Seeing that Zheng Huang was about to say something, Fang Zhao spoke first. I'm going back this year. Going back? Zheng Huang hadn't expected Fang Zhao to make this choice. They hadn't gone back since university. When they'd first started university, he'd heard Fang Zhao say he didn't want to go back. At that time, Fang Zhao seemed to be in conflict with his second uncle. Zheng Huang didn't know much about Fang Zhao's family situation, so all he'd heard was Fang Zhao's complaints. So when Fang Zhao said he wanted to go back, Zheng Huang's first reaction was surprise and doubt. Fang Zhao didn't say anything. He just pulled up an email from his bracelet and showed it to Zheng Huang. Zheng Huang looked at the page full of emails. There was only one reply from Fang Zhao. The rest were all from Fang Zhao's second uncle. He was probably shocked by Fang Zhao's reply. Fang Zhao hadn't been back for more than 6 years. Every year, he'd gotten a no. This year, Fang Zhao's second uncle might have been prepared to receive another no. He hadn't expected that there would be a no. This. Something must have happened. This was the first thing Fang Zhao's second uncle thought of, which was why he was so anxious to ask. You haven't replied to your second uncle? Zheng Huang thought Fang Zhao was deliberately not replying. However, Fang Zhao had really forgotten. This morning, he had just resolved the issue of Pang Pusong and Fu Yingtian's military quota when he had been called upstairs by Duan Qianji. When he came downstairs and saw the notification, he was told about Fang Sheng. After going to the police station, he went to the Cemetery of Martyrs. When he came back, he was called to the top floor to discuss a song with Fiery Bird. Now that Zheng Huang had mentioned it, Fang Zhao remembered that he had received a lot of messages, but he hadn't replied. He had no choice. In his previous life, during the later stages of the apocalypse, Fang Zhao had had no relatives. Now, the first thing he thought of was that. I forgot, Fang Zhao said. Zheng Huang didn't believe him. Before leaving the office, he advised, have a good talk with your second uncle. I think they are sincere about you. It's getting late. Hurry up and reply. What if your second uncle thinks something happened to you and calls the police? Chapter 67. Fang Zhao replied. The second uncle seemed a little excited. He didn't use a voice message, but the text showed that he was very happy. He even sent a photo. Fang Zhao knew from the memories of the original owner of his body that there were 4 members of the second uncle's family, the second uncle, the second aunt, and 2 cousins. There was also a little girl in the photo. When the original owner was in college, the second aunt gave birth to a little sister. She was now 6 years old. Over the next few days, the entire department worked hard and finally completed the 4th movement on the 24th. This meant that the Virtual Projects Department's Memorial Day holiday was about to begin. On the 25th, Fang Zhao took them out for a sumptuous meal before parting ways. Fang Zhao didn't bring curly hair with him. Instead, he let Zheng Huang and WNU look after him. On January 26, Fang Zhao took a ride from Qian to Yangbei with a technician Zhu Wen was familiar with. The technician was also from Yangbei, but he only worked in Qian. When he found out from Zhu Wen that Fang Zhao was also returning to Yangbei, he offered to give Fang Zhao a lift. However, that technician's final destination was not the same as Fang Zhao's. One was at one end of the city, the other was at the other end of the city. Fang Zhao declined the technician's kind offer to send him directly to his home. When he reached Yangbei City, he called for a taxi. Ditong Street. Yes. There's a little traffic jam there. There are a lot of people these days, so the ride will be slower. The fare is higher, the cab driver said. Understood. Fang Zhao gazed out the window. The crowd on the side of the street was moving slowly. As he passed by the crowded square, Fang Zhao felt as if he had gone back to square one after a lifetime. If the apocalypse hadn't happened, the world would have been the same during major festivals. It was crowded but lively. Everywhere was festive. However, that feeling quickly disappeared. The apocalypse that had lasted for 100 years was real, and a new era had long since taken over. Trains sped along the tracks. Flying cars came and went in the sky. He couldn't return to square one, because the world was still progressing. We've arrived at Ditong Street. Outside, there were tall buildings on both sides of the street. The good thing was that the distance between the two buildings was relatively large, and the streets below were not as dark as they usually were in broad daylight. In a residential building that was nearly 100 stories high, there would be a corridor that expanded outward every 5 stories. It was wide enough for 2 cars to pass through, but cars were not allowed to drive quickly on it. Every so often, there would be a more prominent semicircular platform on the stairs. These were parking bays, and there were even numbers written on them, representing the number of parking bays on this floor. Stop at the next parking lot on the 25th floor, Fang Zhao said. Fang Zhao's memory of the address of his second uncle's house was hazy, but a few days ago, his second uncle seemed to have anticipated that Fang Zhao might not remember the address, so he had sent him the specific address. Fang Zhao just had to follow the instructions. After getting out of the car and paying the fare, Fang Zhao saw a group of children running toward him. Those who were a few floors up were running slower, and their faces were red with anxiety. There was no helping it. The elevator could only send a limited number of people. Those who could not make it to the front could only wait for the elevator to go up. Turning his head to look behind him, Fang Zhao saw a float car approaching and stopping where the taxi had been. Whether it was Qian City or Yangbei City, it was common to see adorable floats running around. These were floats that sold candy, and children loved them. The floats' windows were filled with all kinds of candy. The dazzling colors, the fragrant fragrance, and the signature music of the floats sold candy. Wherever the float went, it would always be surrounded by children. When the float car stopped, the children running at the front rushed over and skillfully selected a few types of candy that were within the purchase range and that they liked. The children behind them who were running slower cried out anxiously. They were worried that the ones they had their eyes on would all be picked. Fang Zhao smiled as he watched the children squeezing their way toward the float car. His own memories of his childhood had long been hazy, but when he saw those children chasing after each other, some blurry memories resurfaced. They weren't clear, but they were still there. Fang Zhao had intended to leave this place to these children who only had eyes for candy, but just as he lifted his foot, he saw a familiar face among the group of children. A 6-year-old girl nimbly bypassed the 2 big fellows in front of her and arrived at the window selling candy. She stood on her tiptoes and ordered a few types of candy. A salesperson wearing a childish candy outfit smiled as he took a few types of candy from the window shelf and handed them to the little girl. The little girl received the candy and raised her hand, which was wearing a little bear bracelet, and patted the payment area of the window. She turned around and was about to leave when she raised her head to look longingly at the little bear hanging above the window. The floats that sold candy in this area were arranged according to the consumption level of the residents. The more expensive types sold less, so they were placed higher up. The surrounding children also looked at the candies above the window with envy, but they only wanted to satisfy their cravings. They knew that they couldn't buy it because the money given by their families was limited. "Give me one of those candy." The salesperson, who was smiling at the young customers, raised his head when he heard the voice. He was stunned when he saw a young fellow, but he smiled and took the candy the other party was pointing at from the shelf. The little girl who had just bought the candy also raised her head and looked over. She exclaimed, "Big Brother Zhao? Little Bell Fang?" Fang Zhao lowered his head and asked. This little girl was his second uncle's 6-year-old daughter, Fang Ling. When she was born, his second uncle and aunt heard someone ringing a bell and gave Fang Ling the name Little Bell. "That's me." Fang Ling nodded vigorously. These few days, her father had been showing them photos of Fang Zhao, but they were all from before Fang Zhao went to university. 6 years had passed, and there had been some changes, but Fang Ling still recognized him at a glance. She didn't know if she had really recognized him or if it was a child's subconscious instinct to pull candy buyers to people she knew. The surrounding children looked at Fang Ling enviously. So it was Fang Ling's older brother. Fang Ling was really lucky to have someone buy candy for her. "Hello, here's your candy." The salesperson unwrapped the candy and handed it to Fang Zhao. Fang Ling's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were sparkling with anticipation. Then, she saw her cousin, whom she had met for the first time in 6 years, eat the candy she had wanted for so long. Looking at the candy with the bare head bitten off, then looking at Fang Zhao eating the candy, Little Bell was dumbfounded. The salesperson and the surrounding children were also dumbfounded. So this guy was buying candy for himself. Under the watchful eyes of the people around him, Fang Zhao calmly finished the candy. During the end of days, they also ate candy, but that kind of candy was completely prepared for battle. It didn't taste good and was hard enough to crack walnuts, but as long as it provided enough energy, they liked it. Everything was for the sake of replenishing energy, so they didn't care about the taste. Fang Zhao hadn't eaten candy that looked, smelled, and tasted good purely as a snack in a long time. The soft candy coated in powdered sugar slowly melted in his mouth. The lingering sweetness spread with warmth, as if dispelling the winter chill. However, Fang Zhao was just trying something new and teasing the children. He didn't really like these things. Glancing at the dumbfounded Little Bell, Fang Zhao scanned the interior of the flower cart and asked the salesperson, "Are you selling that too?" The salesperson turned to look at the spot Fang Zhao was pointing at. There was a transparent bear box filled with the same kind of candy. Sell. I'll take that." "Ah. Oh, okay." The salesperson moved the half-meter tall box over. "There are 50 little white bears here. You can count them." She didn't expect that she would be able to sell an entire box of candy, which was usually hard to sell even a single stick, on a normal day. Fang Zhao opened the box and looked at the surrounding children who had yet to leave. "If you can line up from shortest to tallest in 10 seconds, I will give each of you one." The little kids present had no concept of 10 seconds, but when they heard it was seconds, they all started moving. 10, 9, 8. The children who were about the same height and had wanted to quarrel over the order in front of them stopped arguing when they heard Fang Zhao's announcement and hurriedly lined up. Fang Ling looked at the line and then at Fang Zhao. She rushed into the line and found a place to line up. The salesperson in the float car gaped as she watched the group of children who had been squeezing at the window a moment ago form a long line in the span of a few breaths. When the line was about to exit the parking lot area, it turned back and finally formed an S shape. People passing by on the 25th floor's sky walkway also looked over curiously. A few people in the building opened their windows and looked over. 3, 2, 1, time's up. I'm going to review. Fang Zhao looked at the line with a serious expression, making the children in the line nervous, afraid that they would stand in the wrong place and not get the candy. Not bad. Okay, starting from the first one, come over here to get the candy. After distributing the candy among the 32 children present, there were still 18 left in the box. Fang Zhao handed the box to Fang Ling for me? Fang Ling was so shocked that she almost dropped the candy in her hand. For me. Fang Zhao nodded. You don't want it? Yes. Thank you, brother. Hugging the box tightly, Fang Ling's dumbfounded expression turned into a silly smile. Chapter 68. From Fang Zhao's memory, the original owner of his body had only stayed at his second uncle's place for a short period of time after the tragedy. After that, he had been living on campus. In addition, the government had also allocated compensation housing to them. The original owner of his body had grown up with Zheng Huang and a few others and lived in the same building. Their circumstances were similar. After receiving the compensation housing, they lived together. On top of that, with the compensation they received, they didn't need any financial support from relatives. The original owner of his body had always kept his other relatives at a distance. Perhaps it was because he had seen Zheng Huang and WNU's relatives trying to get their way with the compensation money, or perhaps it was because of Fang Sheng's influence. The original owner of his body rarely hung out with his relatives. But before he went to college, his second uncle, who was his guardian, had helped him a lot. It was just that they didn't get along very well, so the original owner of his body was particularly repulsed by his second uncle. Before committing suicide, the original owner of his body remembered his second uncle's words. A long time ago, his second uncle had warned him to be wary of Fang Sheng. Because of this, the uncle and nephew had gotten into an argument. As a result, the original owner of his body became increasingly distant and closer to Fang Sheng. He hadn't told his second uncle that he had changed his contact number. His second uncle's family could only send him a few emails every year. Sometimes the original owner of his body would reply, and sometimes he would ignore them. People always made mistakes, but some mistakes were fatal. Regret couldn't fix them. Second uncle of the Fang family had a square face and two thick eyebrows that were slightly raised. His face was flushed red, probably because he had just drunk a little. He looked at Fang Zhao excitedly, but he had to put on the stern expression of an elder. He opened his mouth a few times to say something, but he swallowed his words, as if he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. On the other hand, second aunt pulled Fang Zhao aside and asked him a lot of questions. She asked about his experiences over the past 6 years and about his current job. Fang Zhao picked out some of the memories he had left in his mind. Looking at second aunt's warm smile, Fang Zhao sighed in his heart. If these people knew that the original Fang Zhao had committed suicide long ago, he wondered what they would think. Does that mean you've signed a contract with Silver Wing and are composing for them? Little Zhao, don't mind second auntie's nagging. You composers have to protect your works well. Don't get cheated and sold off cheaply. Guard against people. A few days ago, I've heard of a major company stealing songs. In any case, after composing a complete song, you have to leave a record of your composition. Don't just record it on a piece of paper. Just in case. I'm just saying just in case, if it gets stolen, at least the earliest record of your composition can be found during a lawsuit. If it's just a piece of paper and it's lost, there's no way to prove it. I know. Fang Zhao nodded. Second uncle of the Fang family, who was sitting next to them, could not hold it in any longer. He interjected, especially watch out for that Fang Sheng who's with you. After saying that, the Fang couple looked at Fang Zhao, wondering if Fang Zhao would quarrel with them over this. No need, Fang Zhao replied. Why not? That kid looks like he's full of wicked ideas. Second uncle wanted to say something, but Fang Zhao continued, Fang Sheng is already in jail. Second uncle was about to say something when Fang Zhao continued, Fang Sheng is already in jail. Second uncle didn't finish his sentence. Fang Zhao briefly explained how Fang Sheng had stolen the song, but he did not mention the few movements Fang Sheng had composed. Fang Zhao gave a brief summary of Fang Sheng's theft, but he did not mention the few movements he had composed. So, the news I heard some time ago was talking about him. Second aunt Fang sighed. There was only a vague report on Fang Sheng's illegal act of stealing the works of many people. His full name was not mentioned in the news, but the focus was on the incident and reminding other creators to take heed. Neon culture was also involved. Fang Sheng was just a minor character. Too much coverage would affect the company's reputation. People who didn't follow the music industry only knew such things had happened. As for who the culprits were and where they came from, they didn't know and didn't care. I told you to watch out for that kid. He's up to no good. Second uncle was still angry. His already stern eyebrows rose sharply. If you had been on guard against Fang Sheng, none of this would have happened. Too bad you didn't listen back then. His intentions were good, but he didn't know how to express them in a way that young people liked. His words sounded like a reprimand. Sensing that his tone was a little overboard, second uncle stiffly changed the topic and pointed to the fruit juice on the table. Cough, drink some fruit juice. Yesterday, I got someone to bring it over from Muzhou. Don't you kids like to drink this? As second uncle spoke, he suddenly remembered that Fang Zhao had already graduated from university and had a job. He was no longer the kid they remembered. Don't mind him. That's just his bad temper. Actually, your second uncle is just concerned about you. Although you are no longer a student and have started working, in our eyes, you are still a child, second Aunt Fang said to Fang Zhao with a smile. It wasn't that she looked down on Fang Zhao, but as an elder, she couldn't help but care. Furthermore, Fang Zhao was the only son of second uncle's biological brother. When Fang Zhao heard this, he thought to himself, in my heart, you guys are just kids. Is 40 or 50 that old? Oh, I'm over 100 years old. At the same time, second aunt, who didn't know what Fang Zhao was thinking, sighed. After 6 years, Fang Zhao had indeed matured a lot. When she had opened the door and seen Fang Zhao, she had been stunned for a moment, not daring to recognize him. 6 years ago, Fang Zhao had seemed to draw a small circle around himself, as if he was always separating himself from the people around him. He always looked at people with a guarded and distant gaze. But the Fang Zhao now. She couldn't tell what he was feeling. In any case, he wasn't the same as he had been 6 years ago. Even though he wasn't very warm, at least he wasn't distant. As she spoke, the door opened. Second uncle's eldest son, Fang Yu, and second son, Fang Qi, walked in, carrying a lot of things. Fang Yu was 20 this year, and Fang Qi was 12. Seeing Fang Zhao sitting on the sofa, the smile on Fang Yu's face faded. What took you so long? Did you forget again? Second uncle's two thick eyebrows shot up. He was very displeased with his two sons' unpunctuality. He had reminded them early in the morning to come back early after shopping, but the two of them had delayed until now. 12-year-old Fang Qi shrunk his neck when he saw that his father was about to get angry again. Fang Yu, who was beside him, had an indifferent expression. He was already used to his father's temper. Probably because Fang Zhao was here, second uncle didn't continue. He glared at the two of them. Come over here. This is your brother Zhao. Brother Zhao. Brother Zhao. Compared to Fang Qi's greeting, Fang Yu's greeting was obviously more perfunctory. Second uncle's eyebrows shot up again. He wanted to say something, but second aunt held him back. Fang Zhao didn't mind Fang Yu's attitude. From his memory, he knew that Fang Yu's attitude wasn't without reason. Oh, right. Fang Zhao fished out 2 boxes from his backpack and handed them to the 2 brothers. These are your Memorial Day gifts. I don't know what you guys like now, so I asked someone in my department and chose this. I've tried this model used by people in my department. The sound quality isn't bad. Inside the seemingly simple transparent box were 2 objects about 1/3 the size of a pinky finger. They were shaped like the beaks of some kind of bird. One part was red, the other black. The combination of fiery red and dazzling black was extremely eye-catching. And this combination of 2 colors made people familiar with earpieces think of a certain company. Fang Yu and Fang Qi's gazes were glued to the black side of the earpiece. There was an obvious fiery red S logo on it. Firebird earpiece? Did you give it to us? The younger Fang Qi was so excited that he was stuttering. If he had a tail, it would probably be wagging happily. Fang Yu lightly patted his younger brother's head. In his heart, he despised his younger brother's immediate betrayal. But his gaze still unconsciously drifted to the earpiece. Whether it was music, movies, or gaming, they couldn't do without earpieces. In the new era, whether it was young or old, everyone had been exposed to the internet and electronic products from a young age. They might not be proficient with earpieces, but they had a basic understanding. Second uncle also knew what the name Fiery Bird meant. He told Fang Zhao, "Don't waste your money." Second aunt patted second uncle on the back and gave him a look. "If you don't know how to talk, shut up." What do you mean by spending money? The other party had good intentions, and it was even a Memorial Day gift for the two of them. Look at that tone of voice. No wonder uncle and nephew often quarreled. All right, go play somewhere else. Fang Yu, tidy up your room. Second uncle waved at Fang Yu and Fang Qi. No need. I bought a house in Yangbei, Fang Zhao said. When did you buy it? You're going back to Yangbei to work? Second uncle asked in surprise. I just bought it. I'm not going back to Yangbei to work. I just bought a house here. When Fang Zhao said this, second aunt Fang understood. Fang Zhao's motive for buying a house in Yangbei was just to have a place to stay when he returned. Then stay here and sleep. We haven't seen you in 6 years. We're happy to see you. Your second uncle bought groceries early in the morning. He's going to cook his signature dish. Cough. Second uncle's face turned even redder. He wanted to change the subject. As he thought about it, second uncle's smile faded and he sternly asked, Little Zhao, have you completed your military service? If Fang Zhao had completed his military service, surely someone would have contacted Fang Zhao's relatives to prevent any unforeseen circumstances from happening. According to the information on the file, as Fang Zhao's former guardian, second uncle had not received any notification. He had wondered if Fang Zhao had someone else's contact information. When Fang Zhao was in university, he had asked a few times, but Fang Zhao had ignored him. This time, seeing Fang Zhao, he couldn't help but ask. At the mention of this matter, second aunt stopped teasing. No, but I won't be doing my military service this year. My schedule is a little tight, Fang Zhao said. If that's the case, that's fine. Let me know if you need any help. Second uncle has 2 classmates who are in the military. Every year, they bring along people who do their military service. Little Yu plans to do his military service this spring. He's in his 3rd year, just over 20 years old. I'm contacting people to arrange for him to go over there. The second uncle of the Fang family stated his plan. The place he wanted to arrange for Fang Yu was not a very comfortable place. It was a planet that was in the midst of development. Mining was not the main focus. The people there were busy with construction, and people who did their military service might participate in the construction. Military service is for him to train. It's fine if it's a little tough, but he has to worry about other things. As people who had served in the military, second uncle and second aunt knew very well what they needed to pay attention to. Where there were people to help, it was fine if it was a little tough. It was a good thing to train and sharpen one's character. It would also have a positive effect in the future. The worst thing was that the atmosphere in the same batch would not be good. The place he went to had no one to protect him, and he would be easily bullied. Fang Yu was not a tactful person. If there really was a conflict, given the impulsive temperament of young people, there was no telling what kind of bloody incident would happen. Although second uncle of the Fang family knew the people stationed there, and his old classmates were willing to help, they couldn't interfere in how to arrange for the people to go over. Every time military service was mentioned, people in the new era always had 2 reactions: find people or spend money. The money had already been saved up. Second uncle had been busy trying to get people to help Fang Yu get a spot for his old classmate. Fang Zhao sighed in his heart. People in the new era saved up for military service spots, just like people before the apocalypse who saved up to buy a house. Some families might have started to save money purposefully before their children were even born. Have you decided where you want to go? Fang Zhao asked. Yes, the place I mentioned to you just now. It would be best if you could go there, second uncle replied. Don't be in a hurry to find people. I'll see if I can settle Fang Yu's matter. Fang Zhao sent Duan Qianji a short message. As he did not know if Duan Qianji was busy, he could only send a text message. What's Fang Yu's student number? Identification number, and where do you want to go? Which team is your classmate on? Fang Zhao asked. Second uncle of the Fang family couldn't react in time. Second aunt of the Fang family reacted quickly and answered them one by one. Fang Yu, who had been about to return to his room to pack, stopped and looked in Fang Zhao's direction. He did not know if Fang Zhao was bluffing or if he really had a way. But since this concerned him, Fang Yu wanted to hear more. Du and Qianji was probably not busy. She quickly sent Fang Zhao a message. Little Zhao, second uncle knows you want to help, but there are many things here. It is not as simple as you think. Before second uncle could finish, he saw Fang Zhao send them a string of numbers. Chapter 69. Second uncle did not know how to react when he saw the serial number Fang Zhao had given him. Second aunt started checking. Her generation had served in the military, so she knew where to look. After finding the official search platform, second aunt entered the numbers and letters on the serial number. After entering, she double-checked it 3 times before clicking search. Then she stared at the results with wide eyes. When second uncle saw the results, he wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. He looked at the search platform. It was correct. They had used this platform when they had served in the military. This. Second uncle of the Fang family looked at the results of the inquiry and then looked at Fang Zhao. He could not form a complete sentence for a long time. He felt that Fang Zhao had changed too much in the 6 years they had not seen each other. He could accept the change in Fang Zhao's personality. This sort of change was not rare. 6 years was enough to change a person's personality, but not everyone could get a spot in the military with just a few words. Fang Yu had already scrolled over to see the results. His jaw was stretched, and it was easy to see how shocked he was. The company gave me a Memorial Day benefit, Fang Zhao said. Your company gives out this kind of benefit? This was the first time Fang Yu had heard of such a thing. Although he did not have a good impression of Fang Zhao was helping him, so he could not put up a perfunctory attitude. He felt a little awkward, but he was also curious as to how Fang Zhao had gotten such a slot. Besides, people who could get a slot would usually keep it for themselves. Who would give it away so easily like Fang Zhao? Second uncle and second aunt had the same thought. Little Zhao, you haven't served yet. Why don't you keep it for yourself? Second uncle asked worriedly. You might not know the importance of a slot. Let me tell you. I still have one for myself. Fang Zhao's words successfully stopped second uncle. After a pause, second uncle said with a complicated expression, That's good. The hand holding the cup was still trembling. It was clear that he was not as calm as he looked on the surface. 1 military slot was enough to shock them. He actually had another. Little Zhao, second aunt thanks you for this. Second aunt looked at Fang Zhao seriously. I haven't seen you in 6 years, and you have become quite capable. Originally, second uncle and I were worried that you would run into trouble at work. Now it seems that you are much more capable than we thought. But if there is anything you need us for, second uncle and I will do our best to help you. Yes. Little Zhao, don't stand on ceremony with us if you need any help. Second uncle hurriedly said. Fang Zhao's big favor made second uncle and aunt Fang a little flustered. For the first time, they clearly understood that the current Fang Zhao was no longer the child they remembered. He was someone who could truly make decisions. Little Zhao, let Fang Yu bring you to your room to rest. If there's nothing else, sleep here tonight. The Fang's second uncle was not a talkative person. After giving them a few reminders, he went to the kitchen with the Fang's second aunt to cook. Most of the year, they ate takeout or convenience food. In the new era, there was a wide variety of such foods. When the couple was busy, they would eat at the office or order takeout or convenience food. The children would eat at school. Only during the holidays, when the family gathered together, would they cook for themselves. To Fang Zhao's to Fang Tutu to his own, second, Fang Zhao, was Tutu to uncle. Uncle Fang to uncle to be. As for how Fang Zhao had obtained the 2 spots, if Fang Zhao did not take the initiative to say, Uncle Fang did not ask. Second uncle and aunt Fang were lamenting the changes Fang Zhao had undergone over the years. On the other side, Fang Yu brought Fang Zhao to his room. Yesterday, his father had asked him to clean up the room for Fang Zhao. Fang Yu and his younger brother, Fang Qi, were sleeping together. Fang Yu had rarely stayed at home since entering university. He had not wanted to tidy up his room. Yesterday, he had only gone through the motions under his father's coercion. His room was a little messy. Well, Let me tidy up first. Fang Yu felt a little embarrassed. Fang Zhao's 2 messages had settled the matter of his military service spots. It was like Fang Zhao had been blessed with a halo. Fang Zhao had only brought a small travel bag. Other than the gifts he had bought for the Fangs and 2 sets of clothes, there was nothing else. Fang Zhao put down the bag and glanced at Fang Yu's room. The 20 square meter room was packed with stuff. The only thing that seemed tidy was the bookshelf. Can I read these books? Fang Zhao asked, pointing to the bookshelf. Feel free. I've never read them before, Fang Yu said. The bookshelf was basically filled with Fang Yu's secondary school textbooks. There were 2 types of secondary school textbooks. One was electronic, and the other was paper. Perhaps it was because they had experienced the end of days when communication equipment was disrupted and electronic facilities were intermittently paralyzed, but even with the rapid advancement of technology in the new era, paper textbooks had never been removed from the scene. Students usually used the electronic version. It was convenient. Paper textbooks took up space and were troublesome. Many students still had new paper textbooks until they graduated. Fang Yu's secondary school textbooks were the same. They were placed at the top of the bookshelf as decoration. Fang Zhao pulled out a mathematics textbook for second years. The textbooks for first and second years could still be seen to have been flipped through before, but the textbooks for third to sixth years seemed brand new. When he flipped open the textbook, Fang Zhao saw a few big words written on the page. Fang Zhao is a big idiot. Fang Zhao. Further flipping, there were words and pictures. Fang Zhao recalled that when Fang Yu was in secondary 2, the original Fang Zhao had graduated from secondary 6. At that time, the relationship between the original owner and second uncle of the Fang family was at its worst. Fang Yu had been under his father's control. If he said something wrong, he would be locked in his room to study. Therefore, he had vented a lot of things that he didn't dare say in the textbook. Fang Yu finished tidying up and turned to see Fang Zhao holding the secondary 2 math textbook. Fang Zhao caught a glimpse of a sketch with words. Scenes of cursing in the textbook from his secondary 2 days flashed through his mind. He hurriedly snatched the textbook and stuffed it in a drawer. Cough, I was young and ignorant. Fang Yu was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. Half an hour later, Fang Zhao had arranged for him to be drafted into the military. Half an hour later, Fang Zhao had seen curses in his secondary 2 math textbook. Fang Zhao wasn't angry. He just said, not bad. Actually, from Fang Zhao's point of view, he felt that what Fang Yu had said wasn't wrong. However, the original owner of this body was no longer around, and Fang Zhao wouldn't say anything about what had happened in the past. Fang Yu didn't want to discuss the past and his misdeeds with Fang Zhao. After some thought, he asked, right, Brother Zhao, did you go to see great-grandfather and great-grandmother on Memorial Day? He remembered that when his eldest uncle and aunt had gotten into trouble, at first, Fang Zhao had followed them to visit his great-grandfather. Later on, after a few arguments with his father, Fang Zhao had stopped hanging out with them and hadn't visited his parents on Memorial Day. Fang Zhao searched his memory and found some relevant information, but it wasn't much. Even the great-grandfather and great-grandmother Fang Yu had mentioned were fuzzy. He only remembered that they were the 2 most senior members of the Fang family and lived in a retirement facility for retired officials in Yangbei. They were probably over 150 years old, even older than Fang Zhao had been in his previous life. I'll go, Fang Zhao said. Every year when we go there, great-grandfather gives us a red packet. You haven't been there in about 10 years, right? If you perform well, great-grandfather might be happy and give you 10 years' worth of red packets. Great-grandfather Fang had retired with military merits. Although he no longer retained his military rank, he was treated well. He didn't have to worry about food, clothing, and lodging, and he received a sizable pension. At the same time, in a retirement facility on the outskirts of Yangbei City, the old folks living there were starting to get busy. They didn't have to do the chores themselves. They were busy thinking about how to give red packets. Old Fang, are you still not giving any to the grandchildren this year? Someone next door asked loudly with the window open. In a somewhat old-fashioned room, a hale and hearty old man sat on a chair flipping through the bills. At the same time, He replied loudly, "No. How old are they? Even if I give them, they won't have the nerve to accept it. Then only great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren." The voice next door said, "I don't even want to give any great-grandchildren. A bunch of brats. None of them live up to expectations." Great-grandfather Fang snorted. The old granny sitting beside him laughed when she heard this. "What are you laughing at? That bunch of brats have always been like that." Great-grandfather Fang muttered. Great-grandmother Fang didn't say anything. She saw the old man say none of them live up to expectations, but when he was calculating, he included all of his grandchildren, including the great-grandson Fang Jiao, who had clearly been safe and sound but hadn't visited them in 10 years. Great-grandmother Fang's smile faded as she thought about the grandson and granddaughter-in-law who had died prematurely and the great-grandson she hadn't seen in 10 years. She had heard that the great-grandson had been admitted to a good school and gone to Qian City. He hadn't visited them before going to university, so he didn't know how much the two old folks had helped him behind the scenes and how much trouble they had blocked for him. Never mind, if he didn't come, then so be it. Family ties were fragile in the new era. If not for the fact that the two old folks were receiving large pensions, not many children and grandchildren would have visited them on Memorial Day. As great-grandfather Fang was calculating the bills, he couldn't stop talking. "That kid Fang Yu, isn't it about time for him to serve in the military?" Great-grandmother Fang put down the book in her hand, took off her glasses, and said slowly, "I heard a few days ago that the second son of third brother's family was running around." Chapter 70. Fang Jiao stayed at second uncle's place for the time being. During the day, he went to the apartment he had bought in Yangbei City and tidied it up a bit. It was about 80 square meters, with a bedroom and a studio. After tidying up, he went to the cemetery to visit the parents of this body. In the new era, cemeteries for ordinary citizens were not traditional cemeteries, but rather a type of corporate structure. Because the parents of the original owner of Fang Jiao's body had died in an accidental explosion, the entire building had been blasted to smithereens. What was stored in the cemetery were not urns but some belongings of the parents. In the past, the original owner of Fang Jiao's body had not returned to Yangbei City to pay his respects to his parents. Instead, he had paid his respects through the official website of the company that owned the cemetery. To pay his respects, one needed to make an appointment and wait in a designated area to move the urn or belongings out of the central storage room. Compared to martyrs' cemeteries, cemeteries like this where the ashes and relics of a company were stored were much more crowded. When Fang Jiao arrived, the cemetery staff told him that he had owed a year's worth of fees. Fang Jiao even paid a 10-year deposit fee in one go. The new era did not allow the public to arbitrarily bury the dead, so they were all concentrated in similar cemeteries. Based on each individual's financial status and preferences, different cemetery companies were chosen. Some were funded by the government, while others were privately run. The cemetery where the original owner of Fang Jiao's body was located was funded by the government. Although it did not look luxurious, it was more humane. Despite being in arrears for a year, no belongings had been moved out. Other than a notification spot, there was no incessant harassment. Second uncle of the Fang family said that he would be going to the retirement facility to visit great-grandfather Fang on Memorial Day. When the time came, he would bring Fang Jiao to meet the other elders. Because the Fang family had urged him to stay, Fang Jiao had not stayed there after buying the house in Yangbei City. Now that Fang Yu's matter had been resolved and Fang Jiao had returned, second uncle's smile never faded. This allowed Fang Qi, who had almost failed his exams, to heave a sigh of relief. However, the only thing that made second uncle's family uncomfortable was that they were always a little cautious around Fang Jiao. It was not because of second uncle's military recruitment. Although that played a part, it was not the entire reason. Second uncle Fang could not explain the feeling, but he did it subconsciously. Sometimes, Fang Yu felt that the way Fang Jiao looked at him was similar to that of the old man who lived upstairs. It was as if he was looking at a junior or a child. As a result, whenever Fang Yu faced Fang Jiao, he always felt like he was a cut below him, and he spoke with caution. Fang Yu analyzed his mentality. Perhaps it was just like what his father had said. People with ability would always inexplicably gain respect from others. Fang Zhao could sense the attitude of this family, but he couldn't change it. He didn't know how to act young, or rather, he didn't know how to act young. He had come to Yangbei because he wanted to take a look at this city in the new era. He hadn't been back for 6 years. Even if his temperament had changed drastically, the people he knew wouldn't say anything. On Memorial Day, Fang Zhao followed second uncle and his family on a public train to a retirement facility in the suburbs of Yangbei. The retirement facility was especially lively today. Due to the rapid development of medical technology and the strengthening of the human body after the period of destruction, the average lifespan had increased. As a result, the retirement age in many professions was around 150 years old. At this age, it was common for 5 generations to live under one roof. As a result, the number of people in the family had increased. Some families had 6 or 7 children. However, in the new era, it wasn't numbers that mattered. It was individual ability. Furthermore, the pace of life in the new era was fast, and relationships were easy to fade. Even biological siblings could drift apart as time went on. Coming to great-grandfather Fang's place was of their own free will. It wasn't a group effort. When the group arrived at the retirement facility, they didn't go to the place where the 2 elders lived. Instead, they headed to a forest near the retirement facility. Worried that Fang Zhao wouldn't remember the rules, second uncle explained, every Memorial Day, many people come to visit the 2 elders. There are many children and grandchildren, and if they all rush together, there won't be enough space. So the retirement facility arranges a place for the elders to meet with their children and grandchildren. When Fang Zhao and his group arrived, there were already about 20 people there. They were all gathered around tables. Those who were on good terms were chatting, and those who weren't were too lazy to even look at them. The 2 elders also chat with the younger generation, but the length of the chat varies for different people. The more important the person, the longer the chat. Last year, the 2 elders chatted with a female cousin for a long time, and the year before that, they chatted with a male cousin for a long time. But I'm not familiar with them, so I haven't spoken. As Fang Yu walked, he told Fang Zhao about what he saw and heard every Memorial Day. His family had always been inconspicuous and didn't stand out, so they came to visit the 2 elders. I haven't seen Grandpa today. Maybe he came a long time ago and left. Grandpa doesn't really like our family, so he comes with Uncle and Auntie every year, Fang Yu continued in a low voice. Not only was it difficult for second uncle to communicate with the younger generation, but he also got into arguments with his biological father. The 2 of them had similar temperaments. Hey, Fang Lang, you're here? Someone at a table under a nearby tree said when he saw the newcomer. Fang Lang was second uncle's name. That person was from the same generation as second uncle. Their fathers were biological brothers, but they weren't close. They had worked together on a project before and were familiar with each other. Who's that over there? The person asked when he noticed Fang Zhao. It's Fang Zhao, my late brother's only son, second uncle replied. That person thought for a while before he matched second uncle's words with what he had heard. Oh, it's him. He had too many relatives to remember, and he didn't want to remember those that weren't important. However, compared to Fang Zhao, the person was more interested in the box Fang Zhao was carrying. But it was already their family's turn. Otherwise, he would have made some inquiries. Fang Zhao watched as the family entered a house not far away. The houses in the woods were built in a retro style, like houses with tiled roofs from before the period of destruction. There was only one house nearby, and it was winter. Although the sun had risen for the past 2 days, the temperature was still relatively low. The 2 elders were definitely inside. Let's take a seat first. Their family just went in, and we're behind them in line. We'll probably have to wait another half an hour, second uncle said. Fang Zhao was just about to sit down when he heard someone call his name from the house in front. Fang Zhao. Hey, Fang Zhao, yes, they're calling you. Come over quickly, your great-grandfather and grandmother want to see you. It was the person who had just spoken to second uncle. He had probably mentioned Fang Zhao to the 2 elders in the house, so he had let Fang Zhao go over first. Hey, Fang Lang, I didn't call you. You'll have to wait a little longer. The person signaled second uncle not to follow and let Fang Zhao go over alone. Little Zhao, be careful. Second uncle was nervous for Fang Zhao. He was also very nervous every time he met the two elders. The atmosphere was too oppressive. Second uncle was worried that Fang Zhao was too young and would be unable to withstand it. Fang Zhao picked up the gifts he had prepared for the two elders and strode over. The house was very warm. There were about 10 people sitting in the living room, and they spoke very softly. When they saw Fang Zhao enter, they were still mumbling to themselves. Their gazes swept over the box Fang Zhao was carrying, as if they were evaluating something. It's inside. The person who had called out to Fang Zhao pointed to the room and said, I'll bring you in. After that person brought Fang Zhao into the room, he turned around and left. However, before he left the room, he had played a trick and did not close the door. Instead, he had left it ajar, leaving a small gap. Anyone sitting in the living room would be able to hear the conversation inside. Inside the room, Fang Zhao saw two white-haired elders sitting there. Great-grandmother Fang was fine. She had a faint smile on her face and was sizing Fang Zhao up. It was as if she was comparing the current Fang Zhao to the little figure from 10 years ago. However, the expression of the old man beside her was not so good. His hawk-like gaze coupled with his imposing manner would make even a young and inexperienced junior feel nervous. The two of you are still as spirited as ever. Fang Zhao smiled and placed the box on the table beside him. He opened the box and took out the item inside. Great-grandfather Fang had originally planned to put on a stern face. This kid hadn't been here in 10 years. This time, he had to have a good talk with him. However, when Fang Zhao took out the item inside the box, he could no longer keep a straight face. The Sirius. Great-grandfather Fang couldn't help but exclaim. What Fang Zhao took out was a 30-centimeter-long miniature ship model. It was silver-gray in color and had a logo and a word printed on it. The Sirius was a warship built after humans explored space in the new era. As one of the pioneers of space exploration, the Sirius had already been decommissioned. However, even though it had been decommissioned, the Sirius was still well loved by model dealers, not only because of its significance but also because of its economic value. The reason Fang Zhao had chosen this warship was because great-grandfather Fang and great-grandmother Fang had served on the Sirius in the past. When Fang Zhao handed over the Sirius model, great-grandfather Fang was still putting on airs and did not extend his hand. Great-grandmother Fang took it from him. Great-grandmother Fang was startled when she touched it. This touch. She looked at a few minor details on the model before looking at Fang Zhao and sighing. How thoughtful of you. Great-grandfather Fang's children and grandchildren had bought the Sirius model before, but they had all been thrown away by great-grandfather Fang. Many people thought that great-grandfather Fang and great-grandfather Fang didn't like aircraft models, but in reality, it was because those models weren't up to standard. There were many minor mistakes. Perhaps only people who had deep feelings for the Sirius would notice these details. But the model Fang Zhao had taken out had no mistakes at all. The materials used were also exactly the same as the real Sirius. To be able to buy such a model, it must have cost a lot. Great-grandfather Fang's expression improved a little when he saw the model. At least Fang Zhao had indeed put in a lot of thought when choosing a gift. Great-grandfather Fang and great-grandfather Fang liked it. Since the younger generation had taken the initiative to express their goodwill, great-grandfather Fang couldn't keep his cool. It's been 10 years. Looks like you've developed quite well. Where are you working now? Great-grandfather Fang asked. An entertainment company. Fang Zhao sat down on a chair beside him. Oh, an entertainment company. Great-grandfather Fang seemed disinterested. He thought of something and asked, where did you serve your military service? I haven't served yet, so I don't have time. This year has already been arranged, Fang Zhao said. Oh, haven't served yet. Great-grandfather Fang straightened his back. So busy with work. What are you busy with? Playing games. Chapter 71. Those eavesdropping in the living room nearly burst out laughing when they heard Fang Zhao's reply. They all knew that great-grandfather Fang hated to hear his juniors talk about gaming. It was fine to play games occasionally, but being addicted to them was a waste of life. Great-grandfather Fang was also depressed. On account that this kid had finally come, he had planned to make up for 10 years' worth of red packets, but when he heard Fang Zhao's reply, he was in no mood. Seeing great-grandfather Fang raise his eyebrows, great-grandmother Fang smacked him and looked at Fang Zhao. She didn't get angry. Instead, she asked kindly, "We are relieved that you are doing well. You have just graduated, so your work surely won't be too smooth. Have you encountered any difficulties?" "Yes." "Oh. I don't know much about military service. Can you tell me about your service on the Sirius?" Fang Zhao asked. The old madam had thought that Fang Zhao would take this opportunity to seek help from them. Among her children and grandchildren, there were many who didn't usually think of them. When they encountered problems they couldn't solve, they would run to them for help. She had seen this type of situation too many times, so when Fang Zhao said yes, she was a little disappointed. But what Fang Zhao said next surprised her. "About your service on the Sirius?" Great-grandmother Fang sized Fang Zhao up, as if trying to guess if Fang Zhao really wanted to know about their service or if he was using this topic to ask for their help. When second uncle talked about military service, he mentioned that the two of you served on the Sirius. "That's why I wanted to ask." Fang Zhao looked straight into the old lady's eyes and said seriously, "I've checked. The confidentiality period is over." Great-grandmother Fang retracted her gaze and thought back to the past. Although it had been a long time, her memories were still clear. She would also look at the videos and photos she had taken back then. Following the decommissioning of the Sirius, those who had served on it had also obtained some videos and photos. After retirement, they would look at the videos and photos when they had nothing to do. Therefore, they couldn't forget even if they wanted to. The existence of videos and photos was to remind people of what they had experienced. Even if more than 100 years had passed, because of the existence of the videos and photos, memories would deepen. "When I was serving on the Sirius, you have to ask me about that. I served on the Sirius longer than she did. I was about the same age as you when I was serving on the Sirius." Back then, great-grandmother Fang had only just started when great-grandfather Fang could no longer sit still. He hurriedly cut in and told Fang Zhao about his time serving on the Sirius. His eyebrows, which were raised in anger just a moment ago, quickly rose again. Space was different from the service on land and sea. It was more unpredictable, and there could be unpredictable dangers at any time. That was why many people thought of ways to let themselves or their children stay on the planet to serve. But Fang Zhao was different. His previous battlefields had been on land. He had never experienced space travel. Many people would gain a lot of experience from their parents before their military service. The information that could be found online was limited. Most of it was released by the government. There was very little private information. That was because those who served in space had signed confidentiality agreements. Even after the confidentiality period, what they said was common knowledge. They would only speak the truth and express their true feelings to their loved ones or trusted friends. Fang Zhao had only learned a little from second Uncle Fang. However, second Uncle Fang's military experience had been more ordinary. Great-grandfather Fang and great-grandmother Fang's experiences had been more ups and downs. They had performed meritorious deeds during their military service and had been selected to stay on. Great-grandfather Fang had been unable to climb up after reaching the regimental rank. He was already old by then, and with regrets, he had gone to the Yangbei government office and worked there until his retirement. However, for great-grandfather Fang, life at the Yangbei government office was just like retirement. There was not much to reminisce about. After retirement, he would often take out his collection of military medals and tell great-grandmother Fang about the past. Great-grandfather Fang loved to tell people about his past in the military. Unfortunately, his children and grandchildren did not really like to listen to such things. Some of the younger generation were curious and could listen for a while, but after listening for a while, they started to get distracted. Of course, great-grandfather Fang was not in the mood to continue. Great-grandfather Fang's spittle flew as he spoke. Great-grandmother Fang pointed out a model of the Sirius to Fang Zhao and told him where on the Sirius the incident that great-grandfather Fang was talking about had taken place. As great-grandmother Fang spoke, she observed Fang Zhao. She realized that Fang Zhao was not deliberately trying to attract the attention of the two elders. He was really listening attentively. Great-grandmother Fang felt that this great-grandson of hers was very strange. He did not feel uncomfortable or nervous when he saw the two elders. When great-grandfather Fang talked about his military service, he would even add a few sentences. Every sentence hit the nail on the head, making great-grandfather Fang even more excited. He talked until his mouth was dry and did not seem to stop. For a moment, great-grandmother Fang felt that they were not talking to their great-grandson. It was more like they were talking to an old friend about the same age as them. Fang Zhao picked up a cup from the side and filled it with warm water. He handed it to the two elders. Great-grandfather Fang took the cup and took a gulp. He pulled up the photos he had stored. "Have you seen these guns? And this one? Back when we were mining on a foreign planet, we were attacked by a foreign creature. It ate 2 of our team members. I killed it with this gun in the end. Oh, and this one." A string of photos were of great-grandfather Fang holding a gun when he was young. Some were solo shots, others were group shots. But out of all these, only this one followed me to become a professional and then retired. Fang Zhao looked over. It was a black handgun that glowed coldly. It was not big and looked somewhat low-key. Seeing Fang Zhao's gaze on the gun, great-grandfather Fang revealed a pleased expression. "Envious, right? Most people don't have this gun." As he spoke, great-grandfather Fang became excited. "If you become famous in Yangzhou, I will give this gun to you to play with." When great-grandmother Fang heard this, she slapped great-grandfather Fang on the arm. "Nonsense again. How could this kind of gun be given to anyone to play with? If the rules were violated, the gun would be confiscated. At their age, they still had to bear the consequences. I'm not talking nonsense. If he really becomes famous in Yangzhou, he will have to pay attention to his personal safety. Why can't he give it to him for self-defense? We can sneakily give it to." Great-grandfather Fang saw that the door was not tightly shut and sobered up. Some things could not be said carelessly. Even if this was what he thought, he could not say it out loud. Great-grandfather Fang looked at Fang Zhao. "Cough, I was just joking. Teasing the younger generation, right, little Zhao?" Fang Zhao smiled. However, that smile made great-grandfather Fang tremble. He felt that something was not right. "Hey, forget it. Let's not talk about that. Let's continue. Where were we?" In the room, great-grandfather Fang did not want to stop. Outside the room, the people sitting in the living room did not look too good. Who would have thought that Fang Zhao, that kid, after not appearing for a few years, would be so good at bootlicking, someone said in a low voice. In the past, no one could be held back by great-grandfather and great-grandmother for so long, right? At this rate, he won't stop anytime soon. Someone curled their lips. Someone outside the room was getting impatient and came over to check on the situation. The person sitting by the door said to the person who had come to check on the situation, "I haven't even gone in to say anything yet, but that kid cut in line. Now that great-grandfather is talking excitedly, he won't see anyone. Go to one side and wait." Inside the room, great-grandfather Fang spoke for an hour until his throat could no longer speak. Normally, he did not speak so much. Today, he had spoken too much and felt uncomfortable. "All right then, the two of you can rest first. I'm leaving. Today, I came with second uncle and his family to see the two of you. Although you have never mentioned it, I know that the two of you contributed a lot back in the day." This was what Fang Zhao had deduced from his memories. If not for the intervention of these two elders, when the original owner's parents had met with an accident and the entire building had exploded, it would have been impossible for the original owner to have received the full amount of compensation. The fact that he had been able to obtain the compensation and housing so easily meant that someone had helped him. And second uncle's family did not have that kind of ability. After thinking about it, it could only be these two elders. "It's good that you know. Don't just play games all day and delay proper business. Come over. What's your personal terminal number?" A red packet for you, great-grandfather Fang asked. After Fang Zhao gave his number, he saw a notification on his bracelet that he had received a gift. When he opened it, he saw that it was a red envelope. The amount displayed made Fang Zhao raise his eyebrows. $20,000. According to Fang Yu, the average amount of red packets received by the younger generation from great-grandfather Fang was $1,000. Some received more and some received less, depending on great-grandfather Fang's mood. And according to the average amount, even if it was accumulated over 10 years, it would still be $10,000. Now, great-grandfather Fang had directly given $20,000. Was it because he was in a good mood? Oh right, regarding the military service, do you have any thoughts? Great-grandfather Fang asked. Those listening outside the door were flabbergasted. Some of them had tried to beat around the bush in front of great-grandfather Fang regarding their own children, but great-grandfather Fang's attitude had always been one, you guys handle your own matters. I don't care. But now, great-grandfather Fang wants to help Fang Zhao? Were his previous words bullshit? Inside the door, Fang Zhao heard great-grandfather Fang's words and replied, I have some thoughts. Oh, tell me about it. Great-grandfather Fang wanted to listen. I haven't decided yet. Give me some time to think before I invite the two of you to give me some suggestions. Hey, you're still trying to be pretentious. Great-grandfather Fang wanted to throw a tantrum but failed. He was in a good mood. All right, let me know when you've thought it through. I'll give you some suggestions. Fang Zhao got up and walked to the door. He did not leave immediately. Instead, he shut the door tightly so that no one outside could hear what they were saying. What you said just now, does it still count? Fang Zhao asked. What? Great-grandfather Fang was puzzled. When I become famous throughout Yangzhou, give me that gun of yours to play with to protect myself. Great-grandfather Fang did not take it seriously. It counts. Become famous first. Don't make me wait too long. I'm already so old, I can't wait too long. Fang Zhao laughed. You're not old. You're only a little over 150 years old. Fang Zhao opened the door and was about to leave when he heard great-grandfather Fang say, Wait, don't be so impulsive as to commit a crime. When I say become famous, I'm not talking about criminal fame. You're thinking too much. Goodbye. I'll come back to see you when I have time. Fang Zhao walked out and closed the door. Inside the room, great-grandfather Fang thought for a bit and said to great-grandmother Fang, Why do I feel like that kid is up to something? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.